tapped in, tuned in, turned all the way on. This ain't just a vibe, it's a frequency bomb. Ms.Blue in the building, Oracle flow, cracking codes of the cosmos, now you already know. Yeah. Ride the wave, feel the light, it's frequency love tonight. Ms.Blue gon' take you higher, burning truth with sacred fire. This is soul talk, rebirth from the womb. Say it with me, I can alter my course at any time. Yeah. Tap in, turn on. Yo, your higher self already logged in.
Oh my goodness. Peace and greetings, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome on in. How are we all doing? How are we all feeling? Wow. Happy Saturday. It is Saturday, right? At least for most of us in the world. Happy Saturn Day. Also, happy new moon, because we are in the new moon. We are opening up this portal as we enter into the eclipse season. I want to welcome you all into divine timing. And we're going to be bringing on a very, very special guest. I see all of the soul family getting themselves welcome and coming on in the building. And yeah, how's everybody feeling? How are you all doing? I see where you're checking in. Let me know what state, what county, what province, what district, and what country you are representing. Welcome, welcome, welcome on in. So good to see you. Michelle is in the building. Welcome on in. LC Moon is in the building. Welcome on in. Also, Brittany Vibes is checking in. You guys let me know, especially if this is your very first time checking in. Definitely you want to let us know. Welcome on in, the 144 Elite representing Houston, Texas, the United States. Margie is in the building. Welcome on in. North Carolina, USA is checking in. We have LLKH2YU from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Tremel is in the building. Welcome on in. Oh, we got Ocean Springs, Mississippi in the U.S. checking in. Dulles, Virginia in the USA. Oh, that Dulles airport is something else. That's something else. That whole Dulles area is something else. But welcome on in. You guys, I'm not even going to hold you. It has been a weekend. I feel like a whole week has gone by in this whole weekend. But enough talk about that. We're going to dive right into the share because the guest that I have coming on tonight is certainly not no stranger to this work, to our community, and to me. But this has been a long time coming. And so I want to take this time so we can do a proper introduction and we can dive in. This is going to be a good one here. And I want to welcome all of you beautiful souls to another chapter of our Divine Timing series, which I absolutely love. And of course, I am Ms.Blue, the Soulful Oracle, and the episode that we're going to be diving in, I want you to think of this. This is a love note to storytelling itself. Because over the years, I have opened this circle to those who have walked beside me, watched my journey, and also felt the pulse of my work through their own lives. And so in this moment, I am inviting you into this conversation that feels so faded. And I mean, we're living in faded times, but this conversation is so faded. A meeting over a decade in the making. And so my very special guest is a brother that I'm going to be bringing on, a powerful brother. And I'm so excited for you guys to introduce yourself and meet this brother. And some of you, this will be a reintroduction. But my guest is the brother Jason. Now, he's known in the world as author Justin Thomas, right? And he isn't just a writer, he's an architect. And an architect in a very unique way, an architect of worlds where Black love mingles with fantasy. And we have science fiction, historical drama, native poetry. You understand? And from some of his groundbreaking, epic work, we're going to be talking about that, the Ruin Poets, to the conjure infused Fable Avenue Saga. His migration, let me tell you guys, has carved out a space in the literary world for a category I feel of its own. Yet despite 2 decades of rich and genre blending work, he rarely has an opportunity, and I don't say this lightly, he rarely has an opportunity to sit down with someone who will let him sort of unpack this winding road that led him here. And that's what we're going to be doing here. He is going to get a chance to unpack that. So I want you guys to know a little bit of the backstory of how me and Justin connected ourselves. And me and Justin first crossed paths through the Brother Panic, and Ashe to Brother Panic. And of course, we all know Brother Panic, the metaphysical occult teacher, legendary in our lifetime. So if you are alive, you understand the work that me and Brother Panic have done together, the work that Brother Panic has done as well, and really has revived in the conscious community for his hands-on spirituality. You understand? And so it is through that connection between Brother Panic that I had the pleasure of meeting with Justin. You understand? And so now we're going to be getting together here tonight on this faded, beautiful energy of this new moon. And so, under the canopy of divine timing, we finally get a chance to sit together. Now, I want you to know this isn't going to be a normal Q&A, but this is really an invitation for Justin to tell his story in his own rhythm. How did a typewriter, and I want you to think about this, gifted to a little boy in upstate New York, bloom into a universe of epic poems and conjure tales? And we're going to talk about how has love and history and magic fueled his pen. So I want us all to just kind of come in a little close. Tonight's going to be real chill, but it's definitely going to be electrifying and activating. Open your hearts and join me. Join me for this very epic and really a faded conversation, a soul stirring conversation with Justin. We're going to honor his journey, celebrate his voice, and witness the alchemy that happens when a storyteller is given the freedom to speak his truth. And we don't see that too often. But let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and welcome Justin on in.
Do I need to say anything else? That was great. I think it's over.
We can go home now. Oh my goodness.
We can go home. That's it.
We can go home.
That was a lot.
No, but it was
like, who's she talking about? Wow.
such a good opportunity. One in a long time coming. And I'm going to dive in before we get ready. And we have our listeners here tuning in from all over the planet. But I want to start at the beginning. And here's a question from the time that we reconnected. And we need to give a very big shout out to Brother Shabazz. because Brother Shabazz sort of kind of, when I had a conversation with him, and he was just going on and on and on and on. And he was like, oh, and the brother, he was this and he's that. And I said, wait a minute, I know him. Incredible, incredible. So shouts out to Brother Shabazz, for the reconnect as well. And shouts out to Brother Panic as well. But I want to start from the beginning. What was little Justin like when he first clicked away at that typewriter during your birthday? And I want you to talk about how did that midnight spark, and I hope I'm saying it right. Is it Nasakiya?
Oh, Niskiyuna.
Niskiyuna. Yeah, I couldn't get that right. How did Niskiyuna grow into this epic storyteller that you are today? And I'll let you jump in where you want, but I want us to take you back until, getting that first typewriter and just starting to get into your work.
Yeah, it was my fourth birthday. So it was April 21st, 1981.
Wow.
We had just come from seeing a re-release of Star Wars. So and that's like one of my favorite stories. And and at that time there were no prequels, there was no Disney getting its hands over it. It was just, everybody was just interested in what George Lucas was doing in telling his saga, which was inspired by so many different things, from mythology to Akira Kurosawa and Japanese epics, samurai epics, film. But that's kind of how it was. And even though it would be a year later where I would start reading comic books, like I was still looking over the shoulder of my older brother, and he was reading comic books at the time, and mostly Marvel stuff. So all of that kind of coincided. And I think there's something about, I was born in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about that year where so much happened. And then from there was the evolution of so many different things. That year Star Wars came out.
Yes.
I think Atari came out, because I'm a gamer as well, and we probably got Atari around 79 or 80. Apple came out with the Apple II. So there was just a lot of things that started to get underway. And throughout the 70s and throughout the 80s, there was the evolution of television with 24 hours of music. I remember the launch of MTV.
Yes.
24 hours of sports, news. I mean, some of this can be a little overwhelming, but we were there to see that evolution. And like now, if somebody's born now, they just have an iPhone. Like we remember when it was a car phone, when it was just a cell phone that was this huge. It was like, it was as big as this box, and we can remember that, and we remember just radio. I mean, obviously our grandparents and parents who remember just radio, and then television, just 3 channels in black and white. But we saw that expand and expand and expand, and to be inundated. I mean, in 1977, there wasn't just Star Wars.
Right.
But moving forward, like movies like exploded. They say Jaws kind of started it in 75. And this isn't to ignore Godfather or Godfather 2 or The Conversation or movies like that, or Mean Streets. But cinema just became, there was somebody who said they were a part of the production of Star Wars, or at least they were a producer in Hollywood. And they saw a rough cut of Star Wars. Went home and had a conversation with their kids and started crying and said, movies aren't going to be the same anymore. Things are going to be totally different. And right after Star Wars, Superman. I mean, the tagline to Superman, we just got a new Superman. And even with all its special effects and with, no offense to the story that was created, like, it's never going to be 1978 again. It's never going to be Christopher Reeve, no matter who puts on the cape. It's never going to be Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor. It's never going to be
Mm,
Terrence Stamp, who just passed away. Gene
yes,
Hackman just passed away. It's
that's
never going to
right.
be him as Zod, and so it's, uh, that was one. The tagline was "You'll believe a man can fly," and
Yes,
everybody did.
that's
And
right.
then we had Halloween, which just, I mean, there were horror stuff before then, and even Halloween has its influences from movies from
Mhm.
like Canada and stuff like that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, yes.
But that turned into what, Nightmare on Elm Street, or before that, you had Friday the 13th, and
Yes,
of course they have like 90,000 movies on their own, but they have their own lore. And then you had Alien,
yes,
like the first Alien,
yes.
and so, and what I love, and I grew up throughout the 80s, and me and a friend of mine, we talk about it, the 80s, and just how influential those movies were. I know somebody like Tarantino hates the 80s, but like I understand where he's coming from, but it was just, what's so cool about the 80s is like it began with Jack Nicholson as a psychopath in The
Yes,
Shining, 1980,
yes. Oh,
and then
yeah, I remember The
yeah,
Shining. Yes.
and then it finished with Jack Nicholson as a psychopath as the Joker in 1989. So,
Mm,
there's this sort of bookending of the decade with Jack Nicholson as a psychopath, and he's
wow.
probably a psychopath in between as well. But
So, mm,
oh, go on.
no, no, no. I'm listening to you go through all of this and all of these stories. I can't help but come back in my mind, and I'm looking at everyone here. Everybody's kind of having their flashbacks to all of this
Yeah,
time. It's bringing up so much richness and so much. All of these things help to cultivate you into the
yep.
writer that you are. I want to take a step back, or maybe it's a step forward from this time, and I want you to share, how did you and Brother Panic meet? How did that connection come about? Do you even remember?
I do. He would come around Shabazz's table, and
Mhm.
he was, he was new into the whole thing. He was, at first kind of getting like Farrakhan tapes and stuff like that. And Shabazz sort of cultivated him into getting Bobby and Phil and
Yeah.
things like that, even taking him to his first like occult shop. But he would come
Mhm.
around, and he was introduced, and we shook hands. I'm trying to remember, like, when was it, like the day that I was just like, oh, okay, all right, this is this is going to be a new thing. I think he was invited to a lecture that I had done,
Mhm.
and I was actually opening for Javon Buckner and Aleem. So I was just like a
Wow.
quick hour. I think it was like 2003, maybe 2004.
So, wait a
And
minute. I just had an epiphany here.
mm,
We're going to go back to your childhood, but something just came up. Talk to me about that time period, because I hear this richness in you from a child, and I'm really
mhm.
picking up vibes of a whole new scope of a visionary from you. So you were doing lectures in the spiritual realm, in the metaphysics. What was that? How did you evolve into that? Were you writing at that time, or
Oh
were
yeah.
you doing a little bit of both at that time, like lecturing, writing?
Yeah, the answer is yes. Because I was always writing. I started writing as four, then I started giving myself personal challenges, or the teacher would give me a challenge. Um,
Wow.
and well, I mean, she was giving or he or she was giving the class a challenge, and I just, said, oh, okay, I'll write a
Yes.
story that's like this. And then I started giving myself personal challenges, like in fourth grade. The end of fourth grade, I'm like, oh, this summer I'm going to write a novel, and I wrote
Wow.
like a 25-page short story, or and it wasn't exactly a novel, but it helped me create what I would call a flagship character who I would write like 5 manuscripts for. And
Wow.
he was sort of a combination of Axel Foley meets Marty McFly. Like, like you take Eddie Murphy, you take Michael J. Fox, and you put them together, and you had this character, and that character is going to be featured. I won't say his name, because that character is going to be featured in a work later on down the line.
Yes.
But I loved listening to like I never really learned how to write like somebody saying, well, when you start a story, you got to do this. And when you do chapter one, it's got
Yes.
to do that. And I learned because I listened to people from Lucas, you know, old interviews of Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, interviews of like Ray Bradbury, Stephen King, and
Yes.
then talking about their process. And I go, oh, that's a good idea. You could do that. It was
Right.
never like, somebody saying like, oh, don't use adverbs. It wasn't something
Yeah.
like that. Or you don't want to do this. There was more like somebody going, well, I watched this movie and I thought, the character was going to do this. And I thought it'd be more interesting if that character did do that. So I created the story where the character did do that. Or,
Yes.
just one day I
So
just thought of a story to tell.
there was no formal training in writing. This was
I was
basic
guerrilla.
channeling and creative
Yeah.
aspects that came through. So how old were you when you started lecturing, and how did that come about? And also your connection with Brother Shabazz.
Oh, yeah, because that all coincides. So in college, I started getting into writing. Real quick, in the 90s,
Yeah.
1990, flat,
Where did you
fall of
go to
1990.
college at?
I went to college first at Southern University, which is in
Hmm.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Yes.
My mother went there. My father went to Grambling, which is sort of like a rival historically black
Rival of
college.
Southern and Grambling, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You
The
got in Texas, so you knew.
yeah, the Bayou Classics, we know.
Yeah. So there was that with my mother and father. But the last year I went to LSU, I, s- uh, you know, in the 90s I was writing all types of things, mostly manuscripts, but all types of things. I was writing screenplays, short, feature length, stuff for comic books. I'll talk about that a little bit tonight because that's how the Fable Avenue Saga came about.
Yes.
Um,
So were you writing for other people or companies or corporation, or was this all independent that you were doing for yourself?
It was independent, but it was independent within an idea of one day these works will be published. I
Got it.
didn't really realize that I was practicing. And I can look
Wow.
back on that catalog of things that I've written and say, well, I can take, because book 3 of the Fable Avenue Saga holds a story that's very dear to my heart. That
Yes.
I wrote in,
Mhm.
it's an 8-part series of manuscripts I wrote in high school and college.
So
And
to date, and I just want to kind of jump in here. This is so rich and so good. To date, how many books, writings would you say you have in your collection to date?
published right now, I have only 8. I'll talk about them real quick, and then, of
Mhm.
course, go over the Fable Avenue Saga. I have something that I call the 90s 90.
Yeah.
I wrote a little over 90 manuscripts between 1990 and 1999.
90, as in 90.
Yeah, it was just like 92,
Wow.
93. And I
Wow.
have them all cataloged, so I know. And a lot of them are on an Apple IIe, and they're on like a floppy disk. So I don't have access to
Wow.
them. They're on old hard drives and stuff like that.
So
Yeah, I love
so
writing.
before you get into the writing, I wanna go into this foundation, because this is even something I don't remember knowing even about you and us connecting, that you lectured at one time. And I want
Hmm.
to talk about what that was like, and what were you sharing at that time? Where were you in your evolution of where you are, and what got you there? What got you there? What got you into that scene?
When I put together the Ronin Poets, I was doing performance poetry, and then I was like, I like telling stories. Let me do a story through poetry. So I did
Yes.
that. I shopped it around. The Chosen Publishing, Tracy Wingfield of the Chosen Publishing, when she was established in Albany. She took it up and said, I'll take a hold of it and publish it. And the Ronin Poets is a narrative epic poem, so it's a
Yes.
story told entirely through poetry. When I was beginning to perform it, there was like a couple performances where well, I'll just talk about it in the first performance that it happened. There's a fight sequence, and then there's,
Wow.
there's other stuff, monologues. It's, people talking and, fighting and all that. And I was just going there to perform.
Yes.
And so I performed, and then I went backstage, and then like Tracy came to me. She's like, they wanted questions and answers because they've never seen anything like that. They're like, they want to know how you created that. Like they've never seen somebody sword fighting and screaming and all types of stuff. And so then I just went out and I answered questions I didn't quite understand. So I was kind of giving them like at the time I was like very Afrocentric. So I was like, oh, I read Anthony Browder and I read this and John Henry
Yeah.
Clark. But they were like, no, how did you create that? And when I started to understand that, I started to go back, and even if it was Anthony Browder's book when he talked about, like Heru and Osiris or Asar
Yes.
and
And shouts out to
the
that brother. I've interviewed him as well, Anthony Browder.
yes,
Yes.
and the Osarian myth, and then to know like that's the first story, and all stories kind of come from that, and then going back to George Lucas and him talking about Star Wars and the hero's journey and mythology, and so I first started talking in that context, but bringing it back to a more like Black or African origin, and I started talking within those contexts, and then code breaking movies, whether purposeful or not purposeful, saying like, we'll see what they did in this movie. It actually corresponds
Yes.
to something that people who look like us wrote hundreds of
Yes.
thousands of years ago. And
Yes.
so I was doing things like that. And one day I think I had come from a book signing for the Ronin Poetz. God, what's the name of that bookstore? Nubian Heritage. They had a Brooklyn, they have the Brooklyn branch, and I was walking out of it, and Shabazz was, he had his table set up next to it. That's where
Yes.
I originally met him. I'd seen him a couple times coming through. I'd been at some of the lectures he put on, and so I was just sitting there talking to him about this, and then we were just jiving or whatever, and then other people would come through, and then eventually he's like, you want to do a lecture and talk about some of this stuff and breaking things down? And that's how I got into doing that. And it evolved from a Q&A from, people wanting to know about the Ronin Poetz, and then just talking and, speaking at Shabazz's table when it went from there.
Wow.
And I'm not like a public speaker. I don't, I'm kind of shy. But it was fun. It was fun though.
Wow.
And that we did a lot of in-house lectures. We did lectures that were, at LIU
Yes.
and in other places. And then I had, I was still doing stuff within the context of the Ronin Poetz. So I was still going around to places and,
Yes.
performing and speaking and doing those. The Ronin Poetz, the books that I've published, I have 8 books on the market right now. So there's the Ronin Poetz, first African-American narrative original epic poem. You got to say all that.
Yes.
It's a mouthful. Then I have a book of short stories. I'm pointing over here. I don't want to move the camera, but
Yes.
I have them lined up. I think you can see some of them.
And I want to talk about that, because one of the things that you have called your work, Black love, fusing fantasy, sci-fi history, and poetry. And I'm starting to see some, not all, of what inspired you to blend these genres together. Was it more about the rebellion energy, curiosity, or really a love letter to your younger self? What really was it that helped you to blend these things together?
When my brother and I, we were creating like our own little comic book universe and our own comic book superheroes, we would make characters that looked like us,
Yeah.
and when you're a kid, it wasn't really within the aspect of like a rebellious thing. It was, that should be the natural sort of
Thing.
thing that you do. You make a character that looks like you. You make gods that look like you.
Right.
And so we weren't making a social statement or commentary having black characters, because you just, even if we saw Spider-Man, we'd be like, well, I'm going to be Spider-Man, but I'm not going to be white Peter Parker from
Right.
Queens. I'm going to be black Justin, or my brother Jason Thomas from New York, Schenectady, New York. But it sounds simple, and it sounds simple,
Wow.
but I have met
Mm.
black creators who were like, it didn't even dawn on me to create a black hero until I was in my late teens, early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And something that in Anthony Browder's book, Nile Valley Contributions to Civilization, he has like a PSA, an old
Yes.
PSA. This is this little black boy. He's got a towel on. He's doing a
Mm-hmm.
Superman pose in front of a mirror, but the reflection is this heroic-looking white man, not him. Or even
Wow.
like a black man, like an older black man
Yes.
who looks heroic. And let me see if I can show this right here.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
And it says down here, what's wrong with this picture,
Right.
and so, like to me and my brother, that didn't even occur to us, because like, you want to be the hero first, like you kick Peter Parker or Wolverine out the. I got the claws now,
Right. Right.
But I mean, on a greater level, a lot of us have been affected by that, because they only saw Luke Skywalker or Han Solo
Yes.
or Peter Parker who's white, or and there's very little black characters, and a lot of times I can be like not impressed with a lot of black characters, even some movies that come out. I'm just like, and it gets me in a lot of trouble.
Yes.
Because you saw that movie? I'm like, nah.
What you say, not for me. Well, what you said is so powerful, Justin, because when you think about Stan Lee and you think about how he created the characters, to find out so many years later that the characters were based on African American men, that him and his brother met, and he put them into characters. And his last work, before his transition of wanting Black Panther to come to life, where many people thought Black Panther was this new character that emerged on the scenes, and to find out he's been out since the 60s. Black Panther has been around for a long time. And for you as a child, because you and your brother were children when you did this, to have that kind of insight, that kind of vision, that the only thing that you've seen was the reflection of yourself. There was no translation of, like, the picture you showed us from Anthony Browder's book of what's wrong with this picture, because even if most people will not admit it, that still is what they're aiming for, right? Because it is not them that they see themselves. How much of that do you contribute to your family life, like your mother, your father, your upbringing, the schools you went to, the places you were around? Do you think that it was sort of this environmental sort of kind of influence, or was it something just innate within you?
A little from column A, a little from column B and C. I
Yeah.
mean, because we grew up in a white neighborhood.
Right.
And, like from one of the reasons why I love the Marvel characters, and
Yes.
even to some degree, at the time, Star Wars being out, knowing somewhat of the backstory before the prequels came out, thinking about the Jedi, I always liked these unappreciated heroes. Like DC always had Superman, Batman. People are a little skeptical because he's just like regular guy in a bat suit. He's as crazy as his villains, but everybody looks up to like Wonder Woman and Superman. But Spider-Man has like J. Jonah Jameson, who ironically he works for as Peter Parker. hating him and wants to write these terrible stories about him. Not that
Yes.
he's saving people. He's like, no, he's a menace and he's got to.
Yes.
And the X-Men are fighting for the civil rights. We all kind of know where that all
Yes.
comes from. And it's just like, yeah, I can relate. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, when you're in the neighborhood and you're completely surrounded,
Yeah.
So it's, you sort of feel like the hero in your own story.
Yes.
It wasn't like intense every day, but it had its moments. I had some good fights from 5+.
Right. So
the first
it
time.
was a little of that rebellious sort of energy coming through that kind of influenced the stories and influenced the characters that has
Absolutely.
come. I see here Obsidian Bee Fly Healer says, a company of Moors I've had on my bookshelf for over 11 years. And I remember a company of Moors because that's when I think we had our first interview. It was an interview on the remix, and you were talking about that. I don't want us to get too far off track. Everyone is just loving the conversation here. And lots of comments coming in. Justin Thomas, greatest teacher next to C. Freeman L. And people are just, they are definitely putting out your praises here. So lots of people who have been following your journey this whole time and watching you continuously grow. Let's go back to the Roman poets. And I loved, was this a play on words? The Roland poets.
No, it's Ronin, Ronin.
Ronin.
Yeah.
As in Roland. Tell us about that. Give us a little backstory on that name.
The Ronin Poetz is when I started thinking about, well, I want to create. It wasn't the first time that my attempt at an epic poem.
Mm-hmm.
I attempted an epic poem at the beginning of. I talked about that 8-part saga that I had created from high school to college.
Yeah.
One of the opening chapters, I tried to make an epic poem, and it was terrible. So let's just fast forward to the Ronin Poetz, which is a little better. But when I was like, okay, now I think I have the ability to do it. So I was thinking about what it should be called, what can it be about, and I just thought first that it was a person who was roaming around and putting their adventures into song, like they were their own bard as a hero.
Right. Yeah.
But then, it started to take shape, and the word Ronin is from Japanese terminology, talking about a samurai who doesn't have a master or a house to serve. And it's dishonorable to a certain degree, or completely dishonorable to be a Ronin. You have no master to serve. You're like a mercenary just taking jobs. But I thought, like, well, if we as Black people had no master to serve, and sort of flip that concept,
wow,
then we could be Ronin and it would be very honorable.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it's a play on words. And the entire, I only thought it would be about like 14, 15 sort of like poems long that would make up a bigger story.
Right.
And then it turned out to be like 170 pages. And that wasn't even my longest epic poem. And
wow.
And as I was creating it, like all of what it's about started to come into play. The Pale King, symbolic of white supremacy.
Yeah.
You have the Shogun. I changed his name to the Alot, which is sort of a play on a Yoruba word, which means traitor. And then I had all types of, I have love interest for the main character, whose name is Makeru, which is ancient Kemetic for, and I'm looking at the cover right now.
Yes.
Ancient Kemetic for Makeru means true voice or voice of truth. And, his allies. And then you have the Orwellian Thought Police, which is the army of the Pale King. And then you have his villainous assassin named Tag. And then you have... in each of my epic poems, there's always a mother and a father. And they always have unique names. So there was Father Aquarius and Mother Pisces, which is based off of my mother and father. My father was an Aquarius, my mother was Pisces.
Wow.
And, so I took those elements and I just created this sort of
Mm,
rebellious story. And it
mhm.
is, by that time I was definitely in for the fight and the rebellion. And it was very hard to try to get it published. I've spoken about, like, the rejection letters weren't like regular rejection letters. They were
Mm.
like, we hope you
Tell
can
us.
publish. Yeah, they were like, we hope you publish this. We can't take it on. It's too heavy. And I was just like,
Right.
really? Like, they
But
reference
what
Wu
year?
Tang and
What?
lightsabers.
Yeah. So what year did this come out? Because when I think about the Rowan poets,
Mhm.
this is kind of like hip hop's first novel,
Yeah,
but in rhymes, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
bold, and I can understand. And so this is, I see this where you kind of took music,
oh yeah,
um, and it really helped to infuse the characters, the
yeah,
stories.
yeah.
Yeah. And then I want to know, how did you see hmm, the rhymes that are in there sort of in today's form? Because you wrote this over how many years ago? About 11 years ago? When did that come out?
Um, the first run was in 2000, so 25 years ago.
25 years ago. So
Yeah.
I can understand why they would think like, wow, this is like, we don't know what to do with this. Like, this
No, they
is
didn't. They
heavy.
didn't. Yeah, they,
Yeah.
they didn't know, and some of them were a little intimidated by it.
Yes, I can
I
see.
didn't. Again, I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was fine. But then I met Miss Tracy Wingfield at a spot that my oldest brother took me to, introduced me to. It was in Albany. It's called Soul Kitchen. It was in the back of a Caribbean restaurant. It was
Mhm.
every second Thursday of the month.
Oh, wow.
They would have an open mic and they would have features, and she happened to be at one. I didn't perform anything from the Ronin Poets, but she got up and she spoke about having a publishing company, and I gave her a call. She told me to submit, and I submitted the manuscript.
Yes.
She called me back maybe like within the week, and she was like, "Oh, we need to meet up." And then
Wow.
she didn't quite remember who I was, but then she remembered me performing. She was like, "Oh, thank God!" And so she was like, "Oh, great." She's like, I do remember you." And so so from there, but even then, it financial threats, death threats to keep the Ronin Poets off the shelves. But it wasn't until
Wow.
like 2005 where we finally got it into a worldwide distribution. And we've been through our ups and downs and things like that, and it's amicable. But I decided to go my own route, and I built
Yeah.
my own publishing company to begin my own works,
Yeah.
to release them
So,
on a time basis that I felt comfortable with.
yeah. So you received death threats because of
Hmm.
the book. And what were those threats about? Like, what was it that was just so triggering, do you feel, that somebody would offer a death threat to you?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them. It was also too, like Tracy Wingfield. A lot of she was trying to create a company that ensured that artists' voice would get heard, they'd get paid, everybody get paid,
Yes.
and and they would have messages that um, needed to be heard. And the Ronin Poets is very you have the villainous assassin named Tag, and while we never see the Pale King in the story he's talked about, but there is a physical representation of who he is, and that's his assassin.
Yes.
And he gives a monologue that sort of breaks down like the mind of white supremacy. And he talks about, uh, I hate black because I'm not black, and I'll kill to be that as well as to make lies facts, to have the whole world hate you as much as I do. And I've tricked you, your people, your mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, potential lovers. I've tricked you all to kill one another. I've fixed every court trial, and I've put this whole world in denial, while my hands around your neck choked you of your last breath, took your culture's wealth and gave it to someone else if I cannot rightfully own it myself, and I have never felt guilt. So you better hold your sword firmly at its hilt, or I will cut you in half. And I don't care for your culture's beats or your culture's rhythms. You, my next victim, I'll slay you like I did your father. A fool with a dream, his life wasted and spent, and you mock K. To me, you're no different. And then they get into a fight, and that's not even his entire dialogue or his monologue. It's very, and you know what's going on. I mean, so it's. Yeah, but all works have been like that. I mean, people now are passing around George Carlin's things that he has said, things that were deep. And that was another thing about the evolution of like 24 hours of movie television, the HBO, Showtime, Cinemax. We had HBO and Showtime like right off the jump, pretty much. Almost to the point where I remember there was a time where HBO would go off the air. And because of that, we had access to people like Richard Pryor. People like George Carlin, and there would be documentaries on people like Lenny Bruce and his comedy and things he went to jail for, and things that he said, and of course you'd have Eddie Murphy, his movies and things like that, and I loved Eddie Murphy, but he was like Ishu to me. He was Eshu. He was like a trickster. He was. It was great to see him at work, but. You had access, and like they talk about, like George Carlin had like an FBI file like this big.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just like George Carlin.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't really take much to trigger people who are in power. They so yeah, or just I would go to some of the more mainstream bookstores.
Yes.
A Borders, which is no longer around, or Barnes and then suddenly Borders, right?
Yes.
And I would have something scheduled, and then suddenly I wouldn't. When I got there,
they would cancel. When they would realize what you were going to be doing and what you were going to be saying. Yeah. So I wanna stay here with this because it was so. That was just so heavy what you just shared with us. And that's just the aspect of it. Do you still remember those lines from the Ronin poets?
Sometimes I'll say them to myself. Like even right there, I was kind of like, don't mess up. but sometimes I can get into the moment and, I'll say them to myself out loud. That's another thing. Like if there's like dialogue in a movie, like me and my brothers, we can quote a movie and go back and forth.
Yeah, go back and forth. Like, yes.
I remember when in 85, but it wasn't until it came out on videotape that I did this. I memorized the last half hour of Clue, the movie Clue, because I thought it was so brilliant that Wadsworth, the butler, played by Tim Curry, goes through the entire movie but fills in the blanks to show you who did the murders. Wow. And everybody thought it was a gimmick for them to make money, but I thought it was an honest gimmick that they had 3 different endings. I'm like, like the board game has many endings. There's different ways to play the game. It ends different ways. I thought that was genius. Everybody thought it was. It is.
Do you consider yourself to be a genius?
Oh no, I'm stupid. No, I can barely spell my name sometimes.
Do you consider yourself to be a polymath?
What's that? Doing many things?
Many things, and no, which is my sons say we don't say genius anymore, Mom. We say polymath. I consider you to be a genius and a visionary. One of the things that they're saying in chat is that this needs to be on big screen. Your work, is that something you want to see one day, is to have these stories translated into a movie, into live action?
There was, that's a great question. There was because a lot of movies and Star Wars and the superhero films and even stuff like Legend, or even things like The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
All of these things. Godfather, which is a adaptation of an actual book. We came up at a time where movies were very prevalent. So yeah, there was
Yeah.
always this idea. I got together with friends from high school, college, me and my brothers, trying to do something. Some things popped off, some things fell flat. Um, uh, I've written some things that, you know, put me on the fringes of Hollywood. I
Mhm.
looking at my stuff, the Fable Avenue Saga, which is very visual when you read it.
Mhm.
It's unfilmable. Like each book, with the exception of maybe the first book, would take 2 films apiece, and I don't have before they made Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling had a huge following, so they
Yeah.
knew that they can make money off of that. But I do have a trilogy that starts with the Ghost of Gabriel's Horn and plucks, parts 2 and 3 pluck from aspects of the Fable Avenue Saga. But right now, pushing 50, I'm tired. I mean, who knows? Like a number
Well,
with a lot of zeros
this
after it could
this is
wake me
when
up.
it really happens. We think about the television series or well, it wasn't television, but the series of Game of Thrones, and you
Hmm.
think about how he was writing and, the books and, people wanted the information faster than they could recreate the stories. But
Yeah, because
I,
he's still not
I
finished.
Right, he's still not finished, but I really think that you are coming into your prime with this. I wanna talk about some of your other work and projects, and, tell us about, how come that's not there we go. Let's talk about the Fable Avenue Saga.
Yeah, unlike
Because
yes, definitely.
conjuring spirits and jazz and all kinds of things going
Yeah,
on here. Spirit
the
guides.
yeah the like I said, I always wanted like a comic book universe, and
Mhm.
this evolution of me and my brother creating comic book characters, and my older brother Jason can draw, and my
Wow.
oldest brother can, he does music. Um, uh, a bit of a plug for the two of them. Like you can go to buggyjive.com and check out my oldest brother's music, and he's been doing
Okay.
music just as long as I've been writing. I
Wow.
mean,
Yeah.
uh, my older brother, photographer, you can go to shotbyjason.com. That's also his Twitch
Wow.
handle if you want to watch an old man play video games. But
Love it. Love
yeah,
it.
I'm the novelist and the book writer, and yeah. So we were always sort of creating our own characters, and we had come up with a team around 84, 85. Um, 86, my brother drew the first 7 members in like a hero sketch.
Yeah.
And at the start of the 90s, I took those characters and then created characters for exclusively by myself, put them on the team, and friends created characters in like a role playing system that was like Dungeons and Dragons, but like focused on superheroes. And they were like, "Oh, you can use my character." Or I would ask if I could use
Mhm.
their character, and I made 10 manuscripts out of that.
Wow.
And I always talk about I ended the final manuscript 10 years to the day that my brother drew the first photo,
Wow.
or not photo, but sketch.
The first
Because I
sketch
ended
of
the
the Mhm.
yeah, because I ended the manuscript, and then I never really do this, but I was like, let me put the date. And I'm like, why does that
Mm.
date look so familiar? And then I went upstairs and I like found old stuff, and I found the first one. And it's, oh my God,
Wow. 10 years. 10
this,
years. So
yeah.
what's the wildest research rabbit hole you went down for this series? What is the wildest research,
I,
like in the rabbit hole that you went down for this series, the Fable Avenue Saga?
it's a collection of things that I've learned throughout, whether it was in Anthony Browder's books or John
Hmm.
Henrik Clark and
Yes,
or
Ashe.
Phil
Yeah.
Valentine and
Yes.
Bobby Hemmett and
Yes.
all of those people who speak and reading those things. I mean, the rabbit hole was deep, but it wasn't suffocating.
Hmm.
And so it's a collection of that knowledge, and
Yeah.
me putting it all together into something. It talks about. I'll speak about this later on as well, but it speaks about in the Fable Avenue Saga, the conjure community. They talk about a time when the world had three moons. They were
Yeah.
red, black, and green, with
Mm.
the golden halos around them that elevated conjure. But there was this great war that um,
Wow.
called the Pious Wars that made the three moons disappear and left with this one pale, sickly moon. And that's when people started to use rituals because they couldn't really connect and they couldn't connect with conjure, and it started to dampen more and more and more. And the Pious Wars were, it talks about the original people going to war with themselves because of a prophecy of being enslaved, and they were like, a goddess comes to them after the war and tells them like, you're not really bound to prophecy. This was a
Wow.
suggestion. You could have totally, like, now we're going to re-alter the stars and we're going to get rid of everything. It's got to come true for you to
Right.
learn your lesson. And so yeah, so so there is all of those elements that that I've learned, because there was I forget his last name, Eugene something. He did you
Mm.
probably find it online. Was it either blacks or Africans in early Asia? And I thought it would be like a Runoko Rashidi sort of like
Yeah.
kind
And
of
I'll
thing, but
shade a
it,
brother Renoka Rashidi too. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he did some great work on
he did
the history.
amazing work,
Yes. Yes.
amazing work.
Yeah.
And this brother Eugene, I forget his name, but
Mhm.
his last name, but it was about just on the walls of temples, sort of what looked like the original people being enslaved by something that was unlike to them. And then, like,
Wow.
so I like, you take information like that and you put it into ideas and say, well, I'm going to pull from this. Because as much as the Fable Avenue Saga started off as, I want this to be a comic book universe. And when people think of comic books, they think of the Kaplawi, the Kaplam. And I know comic
Yeah.
books can be deeper than that. And, but it became this very poignant story. There's still people with
Mm.
powers and stuff like that, but I mean, it doesn't start off like that, and I'll get into the Ghost of Gabriel's Horn, but yeah, the evolution of constantly trying to create what started off as a comic book universe. My older brother, his friends who could draw, but then they got scattered to college and grad school and jobs, and
Yes.
I was writing manuscripts in the '90s, and also in the '90s that was very inspiring was Marvel and DC started to revamp their titles,
Yeah.
and Image comic books came out, Dark
Mm.
Horse, and
Mm.
there
Mhm.
was these advertisements for Spawn, and he's just sitting there, and
Yes.
McFarlane drew
Or the
him, and I was like, oh wow. Real quick, I like wrote a manuscript that, like, it was
Wow.
about a kid, a black kid who gets imbued with powers of from this hero from another dimension, and and he looked like Spawn, except he was all black, and I purposely was ripping Spawn off. I was purposely copying. I'm like, that looks really cool.
Would
The
you say
first
that looks
issue,
cool?
yeah, I
Mhm.
was like, that looks cool. I'm gonna write a hero that looks exactly like that. I made some differences. His eyes weren't green; they were purple. He didn't have a collar; it was a hood. He was all black in terms of the uniform. The stories were totally different, but the heroes looked
Wow.
exactly
Were the same.
similar.
So,
Yeah, purposeful.
along the way, because I'm listening to you and I'm really picking up on your energy, Justin. Did you have any spirit guides along the way, literally or figuratively, along your
um,
journey?
Probably things that I wasn't aware of kept me out of trouble, kept me from, yeah, yeah. But but there were aspects, and I think I learned this from Prince. I would create different personalities.
Yes.
So like when I was finished with the manuscript, I became my own editor, and I gave that personality a name. I even created a journalist who would write articles about me, and
Wow.
I would write articles about the works I was working on, so I could get to know that better,
Mm.
or works, and I would try to plot out, well, if I ever was published, what would come first, what would come second, what doesn't get
Mhm.
published at all, So, and even when I represented myself, I was on the phone with people. I wouldn't be Justin Thomas. It'd be somebody else. Like, yes, 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 yes. And they'd be talking to him. And then they would call me and be like, or, they'd call me later and be like, we talked to so-and-so. I'm like, that was me. I mean, they
So
would.
you were really being your own spirit guide through these different characters,
Oh, yeah.
um, through your life. Did that empower you? Were you able to harness those superpowers? You talk a lot about creating these characters that do have these superpowers. So when you would say, you know what, I have to be my own editor, because I know for me, even writing my book and my story,
Mm,
that's the one thing they keep telling me is like, you got to get you a good editor. You
yeah.
have to get someone who's a good editor. And the recommendation is that it's someone who don't know you, someone
Yeah.
who is not as invested in your personality or how you want things to come across, because the editor is there to give a clear direction about what's going across. So when you would get into this different character and become this editor, what was that like looking at your work, like as an editor? So even say, for instance, if you would read something, would you be like, wow, like this is incredible the way you thought about this, but we're gonna make it clear. Is this the thought you were making? How take us through that process? Because I think it's a very empowering thing to do, because so many times we are afraid to tap into different aspects of ourselves. What was that
Yeah.
like?
It,
Yeah.
it was kind of cool because you can, another huge, my favorite television show of all time is Quantum Leap.
Oh,
And
I
he would
love
just quantum
Quantum
leap
Leap.
into
Yes,
other,
into his
people.
other self. Yeah.
Yeah, into other people, and it would just be,
Yeah.
and I'd see a manuscript in front of me, and oh boy, and I'd have to edit it. But yeah, it was a way for I could detach from the work and look at it and see what was wrong without being too critical, and see what was good without being completely arrogant.
Got it.
So it was a
Mhm.
way to detach. Although you do need an editor, and
Yeah.
it can be somebody you do know, but they got to be honest and they got to be,
Yes.
because my editor is in the other room right now, my wife, and she knows how to be honest.
She know how to be real.
Yes, she does. She
Shout
knows
out to the
she
wifey.
Yeah, Nakia, she know how to be honest. She know how to give me back with it. It's just red everywhere, like it's just bleeding, just like I'm looking at my own work through blood. I'm like, is any of this good? She knows how to go to sleep while I'm sitting there just looking at. She's sleeping all sound and stuff, and I got to think about no. There was this one thing in book 2 of the Fable Avenue Saga. There was a line because she questioned something, and I liked
Mhm.
how she worded it, so I put it into the character's thought.
Mhm.
I made it because the
Mhm.
character's based off of her anyway. But yeah, so and that was great because that alleviates a lot of work. I do
Mhm.
know now how to go back to my work and tighten it and then give it to her, and then we go back and forth, and it's a very fun process for me. I don't
I
even
love
worry
it.
about, even if she's extremely honest.
Right.
I don't even worry about that because I'm like, oh no,
Mhm.
no, 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 let me, it's a challenge to correct it. I mean, the only time I was ever really grumpy, I was writing a company of Moors, and you talk about a rabbit hole of research.
Oh, yes.
I read at least over 4,000 pages of things to get that thing down.
Wow.
And then she was like, we should talk about food, put food somewhere and really in detail. And then I'm like, oh God. And it's one of the reasons why, in the Fable Avenue Saga, um, um, there's a small area called Waterbug Hollow. It's
Mhm.
right outside of New Orleans. It's fictional. Originally, it was supposed to be New Orleans, but I was
Wow.
so research fatigued because of A Company of Moors. I was like,
Yes.
no, no, we're gonna create something else. I will, I will fill it with my and I'm glad I did because it has its own history and it has its own,
Yes.
Waterbug Hollow. But yeah, it's actually fun. I always remember again going back to Star Wars and going to George Lucas. I mean, he
Hmm.
says it, and you can hear the headache in his voice, and just the suffering that when he finished the original Star Wars, he said he had all of this film, but he didn't have the special effects yet, and he had to go to
Mm.
editing it, and that was only the beginning of it. And I
Yeah.
feel that way too. I love ending a manuscript. It's the best sleep I ever get. But I know that there's more work, and I like that extra work. And sometimes
Hmm.
it's almost like being in Ocean's 11. It's like pulling off a heist. Well, we got to fix this and
Mm.
do this, and then we got to do that, and we got to do it in this time because it's got to be released here. And I'm going to make these videos and put them out here, and so I actually like the business side of, a lot of
Yeah.
artists don't like the business side, but the business side for me is fun. It's like pulling out
It's
a, like I
fun.
said, pulling off a heist.
So speaking of which, Twin Griffin Books is your
Mhm.
playground.
Yeah,
What did stepping into that role of publisher teach you about sovereignty? What did it teach you about ownership and staying true to your vision in a world obsessed with trends? Because now you're in a different role as the
yeah,
publisher.
yeah. Um, it was kind of it was not really anything different. I mean, because even when I was at the Chosen Publishing, she was just like, "Do whatever you want. We will talk about things. We will make suggestions, but we'll never really censor your work." And I
Got
don't
it.
mind censoring my own work if I'm like, if I create a line and somebody says, and I go, you know what, people might
Take that.
focus on this line too much.
Yes.
I don't mind doing that myself. I mean, or if my wife says,
Mhm.
you might want to rethink that. And, so I don't mind if it's all about the best way a story can work. Um, uh, but what's great is I was on my own time in terms of publishing.
Mhm.
I first came out as Ancient Art of Facts Publishing,
Ah, okay.
and that was with 12 Stories High, Code 47, and A Company of Moors. When I got to the Fable Avenue Saga, I rebranded as Twin Griffin Books. As Thomas is twin,
Yeah.
and Griffin is my mother's maiden name. So it's
Mhm.
Twin Griffin Books, which is also the reason why in A Company of Moors, the Griffin Company is sort of the protagonist. Um,
Wow.
but it was, yeah. It was great. It didn't feel any different from when I was growing up and writing and doing it myself and putting things together myself. I've never felt that sort of pressure of
Right.
somebody. Even there was something that, and to me, I always see it as a challenge. And maybe my
Yes.
wife just knows how to talk to me as an editor. But
Yeah.
there was something that happened in book 2 of the Fable Avenue Saga. I can't say because it's a spoiler, but she felt it was too sudden that this character made a decision, and I was trying to make it subtle. And then I
Mm.
said, you know what? There's a way I can just bring it out a little bit more, and it stays subtle, so that when this character makes this decision,
Yes.
you understand as the audience and go, "Oh,
Oh,
okay, all
I
right."
get
And
it.
and it was
Yeah.
it was her editing and her suggestion, so it was just like,
Wow.
yeah, it strengthened. So
Beautiful.
and even I make a joke about the food and the research, but no, it helped the story. I introduced it almost part of a chapter where they're talking about trade and where they get their things, and it made it seem more realistic when you're immersed in the story that's in this might be a fictional city, Almari
Right.
Afrik, in a fictional North African landmass called Odongo Maharim, but it
Mm.
seems real.
Mhm.
When one of the characters, Bo Youssef, is walking around and he's pointing out different areas and districts and where they make things, and points out the bank and where they mint their own coins and how they do that and how they and
Yeah.
yeah, it makes the world feel real. It has a
Real.
lore to it.
And that's, you know, one of the things I love about your writing. Your characters move through what we move through as people. They move
Mm.
through love. You have a lot of magic. And there is even this element of some trauma that happens to that. How much of your own healing journey is woven into them? Have any of the scenes ever surprised you by revealing parts of yourself that maybe at the time you were not aware of?
Um, uh, I mean, everything is sort of purposeful. So when I put something in, you know,
Mhm.
I know maybe the process of coming around to it. I know in the
Yeah.
Ronin Poetz, you know, there's a lot of zodiacal imagery and astrology. Tag is known as
Mm.
Cancer. And, you know,
Wow.
my father passed from cancer. So when it talks about Tag, you know, spoiler alert, when he
Yeah.
takes out Father Aquarius, you know, I talk
Yeah.
about the stars negatively aligned, Cancer and Aquarius. You
Yes.
know, so, you know, it's sort of that. And that whole fight sequence when it happens was sort of, you know, doing that
Mhm.
with the, you know, my father's battle with cancer. But,
Yeah.
yeah, so in the Fable Avenue Saga, and you know, if I could do that, I could be brave enough to do anything with
Do
it.
anything.
And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's what I like. I mean, I it can be heavy, but you know, I never feel burdened by it.
Buy it.
Um,
Yeah.
and and I've always been, if not to anybody else, honest with myself. You
Got
know,
it. Yeah.
and I think that's the best way to be
Mhm.
any form of artist, to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I've read people's works where I just know they're not used to being honest with themselves, and it affects their writing.
Mhm.
And so you know, and you know, I don't consider myself the best teacher, but I'll tell somebody like, "Oh, get to a class," you know, or read up on some things, and here's an article about writing, and see what you can gather. But eh, like growing up, seeing all this, it was just, and I was very aware that I was learning because I wanted to. Like, how did this? There was a an author from my area named James Howe. He
Yeah.
wrote books for kids. You know, one was called Banicula. It was a rabbit who was a vampire, and
Wow.
and it is a series, and you know, some of it, you know, is intense, but it's mostly for kids. And he has a
Yes.
mystery series, which is can be really intense. But he came to my school to speak, and he showed like his manuscript. And I remember somebody I went to school with. He's like, "Oh, you could do that. That's not even that long." I'm like, "Yeah, I could do
So
that."
you could do that.
Yeah, yeah. But he talked about his process, and I everybody else when we had to gather in the gymnasium, everybody else was like, "Oh, great, we don't have to go to math." I was like, "No, no, this is real school. Like, I want to hear how this guy
Mm.
created this thing." You know, like, and I
Yeah.
was attentive. I was like, "Oh, that's so great." So
Wow.
I like stuff like that, and for me, it's been a journey from age the first and on.
Wow.
You know, so that's why it's hard for me to teach because I don't know where somebody is and I don't know what suggestions to make and I don't want to mess up a person's voice. You
Got
know,
it.
and you know I just did it. You know,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
just started writing. You know, there's a
You
lot of
just
people who
started
talk about
writing
it.
what you
Yeah, just
loved, and you did.
yeah.
So, talk to us about book 2 of the Fable Avenue, which is the Brooklyn's Lilac Brew. Uh,
Book two takes place uh, about almost 60 years later from book one.
wow.
Books, yeah, books two, three, and four. What's been established is that there's a uh, there's a conjure community in Brooklyn in a fictional street called Fable Avenue,
Mhm.
and um,
I'm from Brooklyn. by the way. Born
That's
Brooklyn
what I
girl.
thought. That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
I'm a
That's what
Brooklyn girl. So,
I thought.
represent. I had to represent. And this is just a remix on the brother Justin's covers. So we could have it here, you guys. You guys are getting the
They look
remix
cool.
version of it.
They look cool.
Thank
I
you.
like looking at that. I like that. That's real cool. Um, yeah. So and I'll go into if we have time, I'll
Mhm.
go in depth a little bit more later. But the the book is about these two sweethearts, Gordon Goodspeed and Faye Forrester,
Mhm.
and they have these spirits imbued inside them, or they're imbued with these spirits, the lilac flame and the cobalt blue flame. And it was through ritual that they were able to get these spirits. And uh, like I said, I'll explain a little bit more later. But my fourth epic poem in 13 pieces is this sort of visual story that and metaphor that they indulge in that is there to teach them who they are and what they're supposed to do with these newfound abilities and
Wow.
how they're supposed to erase hex and malevolent magic from the world, or malevolent conjure. Um,
Wow.
and
And
that's
how old are
that's
they? How old are they?
they're 19. Actually, I was about to say late teens, but specifically 19 because
19.
yeah,
Mm.
and I'll talk about later why that is important.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, so the uh, yeah, that book, that's the bulk of um, when I say I wanted to write comic books or make a comic book universe.
Yes.
Um, I that has because there's a lot of moving parts in how the Fable Avenue Saga got created,
Mm.
and it's like what I started in one year manifested better when I came up with something else and snapped it with something else in another year.
Yes.
And what I came up with at that time, because I said me and my brother, my older brother, we were trying to create so much stuff, and then after a while, it was just kind of me. And it wouldn't be until after college,
Mhm.
like 4 or 5 years after college, 2003, 2004, I would start to compose a universe where I felt comfortable with the goings on and happenings of the created world. And
Wow.
I made separate writing docs, like and for heroes and for villains, and I made a list and I put together because one of the things I struggled with was making the heroes,
Mm.
because I was
Why do
just
you
like
think so? Why do you think
uh,
the heroes was it hard hard to create them? What do you think the
I
cause
th-
was?
I
Mhm.
think on the surface, there's an idea of like, well, if I became this hero, they better have the right powers. I want really cool powers. But there's also an idea of this is definitive, and how do I work this hero or these heroes through this story? And
Mm.
if they have a specific power, I have to know how it can be used to its fullest, how it can be used on a small level, and I
Mhm.
have to make sure, like, I just can't come up out of the blue and say, well, this person is made up of magic, so they can do this. It's got to make sense to the story.
Mhm.
So I think that the heroes were representatives of the story itself.
Mm.
So I
Yes.
had to really make tight heroes, and I mean main heroes.
Yes.
Because there's co-heroes and co-characters that will
Yes.
surround these heroes, but the main character has to be somebody that um, not only the reader wants to follow, but somebody that when I write him or her, it makes sense every action that they do.
Right. So there's
Um,
a level of responsibility you were accounting
Absolutely.
for. And the reason I want to ask you that question, because our younger listeners talk a lot about, Justin, about reclaiming the narrative. So this is, how do you feel, and you kind of dived into this in this question, but how do you feel your work is challenging mainstreaming storytelling? Because I even just went on a reflection of just your work back then. And honestly, if I have to think about it, it was kind of deep for me at that time. I was like, whoa, like, who is this guy? Panic was going on and just, about the book and everything that you were doing. But now looking at the world of where we see it now, how does your work challenge mainstream storytelling about the African diaspora? And what stories do you feel still need telling? I personally feel your work needs to get out more into the world. It really is timeless. And but that's just my take, and everybody else is here. So but kind of elaborate on that a little bit for us.
Yeah, in that process of creating a comic book and comic book universe, in the '90s, the X-Men had their first, well, technically their first animated series.
Yes.
They tried to do one beforehand, but the pilot didn't go anywhere. But and that pilot can be seen on YouTube. And they sold it as on VHS. Like, if you proof of purchase for comic books, you could get it. But then they had a steady one in the '90s, and there was an episode where they tried to emulate the story called Days of Future Past. I believe that's it was within this realm of that story. And so X-Men are dead in the future, or most of them. Somebody's chosen to go back in time to stop whatever happened. And they're there, and I think they go to like the 60s or 50s or something. And Storm and Wolverine are a couple. And of course it's an interracial couple.
Right.
And they're in a cafe or something. And then suddenly somebody notices that, like, they're, together. And somebody's like, "Hey, what's going on here?" They have that sort of moment.
Yes.
And it felt to me like that probably wasn't in the original script. And somebody probably forgot to even think about that.
Wow.
Like, that wouldn't have been accepted at the time. And somebody probably went, you got to go back and write that in. And you got to
and put something different in there.
Remember where the X-Men actually come from. Like, this is the real X-Men stuff. So when I started putting things together, especially when I started creating this world that would eventually become the Fable Avenue Saga, I'm like, I'm not going to ignore our history.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to ignore. I mean, I can't. So that was one thing where, like, nowadays, I think for me, a lot of things are very much on a surface level right now because they can't get too deep. I'm not trying to be deep, like trying to, like, show off an intellect. I just want to make sure that I honor things that came before.
Right.
With movies, I've started to be a little bit less of a critic because I know with a movie you have a limited time.
Yes, to tell a whole decade, sometimes centuries in 5 minutes,
Even a story that takes place overnight, and not even the best people can do it. And then when you're trying to throw, like, metaphor in there, things can get lost. So to me, like, a lot of stuff becomes very disappointing. I'm like, but I've learned to just not be so critical because I know that, like, this is Love's Path to Now. This is 813 pages.
Wow. Hold it up again. Hold it up again, Justin. It's how many pages again?
813. The narrative is 813 pages. And that's book 3. Now, I mean, the middle books, book 2 and 3, are going to be long. Like, book 4 is not going to be as long as that. It'll probably be somewhere between books 2 and 3. Book 2 is, let's see. Book 2, this is book 2. It's 682 pages. Come on.
Wow.
683, I'm sorry. So The first book starts off of, it's only like 460 pages, but it's a saga.
Yes.
I have the luxury to cover a lot of things and get into concepts in ways that, I know when somebody creates a film and they want to make something, and I see a lot of people being like, "Oh wow, that was great," and I'm just like, they they just landed on the on the runway. Like
So,
it's okay,
so
but
throughout your sagas, throughout your books,
mhm,
you're giving us the backstory to the story
yeah,
and taking us on this journey, because that's what it really, really feels like it is, going through this journey.
mhm,
And I love that you said you're going to tell history. So there is things that you can tie that are real in this reality, or as real as we understand them to be, which speaks a lot to legacy, history, the
yeah,
diaspora,
yeah,
about storytelling, because we don't get too much of that. There's not many. There are some writers that really go deep into that, but not many, and especially not for as long as you've been doing it. One of the brothers, the brother Ike in the room, was saying you are a true scribe. And
thank
as
you.
soon as that comment came up, I said, oh my God, yes, yes. So, one of the things you've hinted on, Justin, is that 13, that number
Hmm.
13.
Hmm.
Will that be your last book? 13 books?
Yeah,
Will
right
you
now
will you retire at 13?
yeah, publishing. I mean, and I have said that, if I hit the last period in the last sentence in the last paragraph on the last page of the last book, if I come up with a 14, it's gonna be 14. But
Got
right
it.
now, and
Right. It's 13.
I do have works that I want to do afterwards. I don't know if they're shareable yet. Maybe they will be. And also, I'm on 9 with book 4 of the Fable Avenue Saga, and then I'm going to
Wow.
do the second historical epic. Then there's going to be a space opera. A lot of concepts that are in the Fable Avenue Saga are going to go cosmic. Takes place in a different
Mm.
universe, but
Woo!
cosmic.
I love it.
And then the third historical epic, and then book 13. It takes two, because I got to hold down a 9 to 5 job, so it takes about 2 3 years, just because things were going on and things were happening. Book 3 took too long. I started in 2016, but it ultimately
Mhm.
wasn't out until 2022. Um, that wasn't because of its length, though.
It
It's
was.
probably Mhm.
No, 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 no.
Yeah. It was just things just started to happen. Is all.
Mm. Mm.
And then my wife, she started getting into her art. She's an amazing artist herself, and she wanted to study overseas. So we went to Scotland and we lived there
Wow.
for a year, because we went out
Yes.
in a year called 2020, which a lot of stuff happened in 2020. But we saw all that happen from afar. We turn
Yeah.
our back on America for 5 minutes, and y'all go buck
Wow.
wild. Yeah, because
Yeah.
so the pandemic, we were supposed to be out there for 2 years. 3 if the money was good. The second
Yes.
year was going to be more for travel, but the pandemic hit, so travel got locked down, and
Yes.
we got a year and a couple months out of it, and it was the best thing ever.
Wow,
It was the
beautiful.
best thing ever. It was, she'd be drawing and I would be writing. We each had our own personal bottle of wine. Um, we had jazz coming through the iPod, WBGO out of Newark. It
Oh,
was just really
wow.
kind of a cool, like for a year, we got that, and
Wow.
she was studying at the Edinburgh Atelier of Fine Art. And I went out there, I had about 500 and some odd pages of book 3 of the Fable Avenue Saga. I knocked out the rest of the 300 in like months.
Wow.
So it didn't
Yes.
take much. It was just, all that, that was on me, was
Yeah.
off. And all I had to do was write. And then now I was, like Pacino and Godfather 3. Every time I think I'm
Mhm.
out, they pull me back in. And next thing I know, we were back here. But it's cool.
Wow.
It's cool. We back in New York, White
Yes.
Plains, and living where we living.
Yes. Well, let me
So,
ask you, you're getting a lot of questions that are coming in. And one of the questions that's coming in, any hope for continuation of 12 Story High?
not at the moment. I will say that there are several stories in 12 Stories High that coincide with the Fable Avenue Saga. One of them is Headless. Another one is Amor, the woman who wore a veil but had nothing to hide. And I'll talk about that a little later.
Mm, wow. So
Mm.
let's do this, everyone. Again, this is Brother Justin, and you guys can reach out and connect with his work at authorjustinthomas.com. Very simple. I have it
Mhm.
there on the ticker board so you guys can see. Yeah, let's continue. I'm going to let you, well, mm, uh, so here's a question. If you could
Okay.
slip into one of your worlds for a day,
Mhm.
be it a battle, it could be a battle, maybe, right?
Mhm.
A riot or vibing on Fable Avenue, where
Mhm.
would you go and why? So if you can slip into any of your worlds, it could be a battle with the police or a riot or vibing with on Fable Avenue because I just seen that picture of Fable Avenue there. Where would you go? Which world would you slip into for a day and why?
You just said vibing on Fable Avenue. I think now, especially since I'm on the last book, the fourth installment, the final book, I'd probably vibe there.
You vibe.
Because, yeah, I can't go into too much of why because it's huge spoilers. Um, but it's really cool at the moment there. They got a genre of music called conjure and soul. So I,
Ooh.
I would vibe. The block parties on Fable Avenue they take place
Okay.
outside of time. They know how to
Okay.
jam. So even if it wasn't specifically set on maybe Fable Avenue in the 70s,
Mhm.
yeah, just chill on Fable Avenue in the 70s. I know it was jumping.
Mm,
So
mm.
definitely there.
I love that. And so for all of us aspiring uh, writers, or even the Gen Z who tends to binge poetry on TikTok or, frantically writing inside the Notes app, what is one spiritual or creative truth you wish someone would have told you when you first started?
um, don't be so naive as to how creative you are. They will try to stop you,
Wow,
even if you
that's
can make them
profound.
money.
Wow, even if you could make the money,
Even if you make them money, they will try to stop you.
they will try to stop you. Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's profound. That's profound.
But
Wow.
don't give up.
Don't give up. Don't
Yeah,
give
don't give
up.
up. Fight back. Let that be the fuel.
And
Let that. Oh,
so
that goes to Gabriel's horn.
do you have a project right now you just finished?
I'm working on the fourth and final book of the Fable Avenue Saga. I'm
Right.
about 200 pages in,
Mhm.
and other than that, I'm making notes for the things that come after, and those notes are getting bigger and bigger to the point where when I start them, I'm not going to be like, oh, so what do I do now? It's I'm going to take off. And technically, when it comes to Fable Avenue Saga, I haven't really finished the book because even when I finished book one, I knew book two was going to. I got to do
You
book
do
two,
book 2.
book three, and book four.
Mhm. And if someone was to start with your work, where would you tell them to start? What would be the book that you would recommend if they wanted to get into Justin's world, Brother Justin? Where would
Hmm.
you recommend they start?
That's a good question. I would. Oh, that's an interesting question. Because I have Ronin God's Dial 13, which is a compilation. Because I always
Mhm.
think in sequence, like, Ronin Poetz, 12
Yes.
Stories High, Code 47, A Company of Moors, and The Ghost of Gabriel's Horn, and Brooklyn's Lilac Brew. And then, so I always think in sequence.
Yes.
Um, but just to dive in, um, I would actually start with The Ghost of Gabriel's Horn. There's a lot in there, and not just because it's book one of the Fable Avenue Saga,
Right.
um, because I like I like how the Fable Avenue Saga starts off subtle and then moves into there is a quote which I'm gonna look for, which I should have on me at all times. It is a quote from a video game series, which I just think is one of the best things ever. I hope I didn't crash my computer. Um, it is. Let me see if I can find it. It is such an amazing quote.
Mm.
Sorry about all this.
No, no, no. And
Here we go. Here we go. Is this it? Nope. my there's such a delay on my pad.
that's
But
okay.
it's from Final Fantasy VII,
Mm.
and the
Okay.
quote, the sort of tagline for the video game. It had many taglines,
Yes.
and this tagline said, "What begins." Oh, is that it? No, it's the other Final Fantasy.
And it's from Final Fantasy. Let me see if I
Final
can.
Fantasy said, here it is.
You
There it
got
is.
it.
What
Okay.
begins as a rebellion against an evil corporation becomes much more, and what erupts goes beyond imagination. And they're not
Mm.
lying.
That's true.
And and I've talked about, even with the speaking engagement that I did for Shabazz, I talk about like wanting my own aspect of something that I read or hear. And like when I saw that, I'm like, I want to create something that starts like this and then
Yes.
just
Just
goes
like that.
really where you just don't imagine it to go. Or even if it
Yeah.
does go, to a place where, um, uh, because I see movies. I'm thinking of one particular movie called The Drop with Tom Hardy and James Gandolfini. Another movie where there's dialogue I just had to memorize because it was so amazing. Um, the You can tell where it's going, but you have so much fun getting there. So
Wow.
sometimes, like,
Yeah.
I don't even care if you can predict what happens. Sometimes it's that journey is
Yes.
just like, but still, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a So I wanted to create something of that nature, and then I'm thinking of the works that come beyond that. But truthfully, I mean, Code 47, Memoirs of a Hip Hop Heist, is Ocean's
Oh,
11 meets The
wow.
Grinch Who Stole Christmas. Because they're trying to steal this metaphysical concept. How do you steal the genre of hip hop? I mean, we know how you can steal the genre of hip hop.
Yes, obviously. Yes.
But how do you take it back? And it's all based on like a heist. Company of Moors. It's just A Company of Moors started off as my gangster novel, and it turned into this
Yes.
political intrigue.
Yeah.
And it's just because I just had that idea, and I was just like, oh no, I want to write about the pirate companies and on the Mediterranean, North African coast. And it seemed a little different. There's another video game series called Red Dead Redemption, which is a western,
Mm-hmm.
and it was interesting because what they did is they set it after the time of like the the golden age of the West.
Mm.
So it's set
Wow.
in 1911, and like
Wow.
civilization as it is at its peak, it
Mm-hmm.
hasn't caught up in the West. So you have the government moving out and taking out outlaws left and right. And then you
Yes.
find out through the story that the government might be a little bit more hardcore than the outlaws are, and the outlaws might have a little bit more
Yeah.
honor.
Wow.
But what I loved about it is they didn't set it in 1870. They didn't set it in like 1880, 1875, 1885 is sort of like the golden age of like the
Mm-hmm.
shootist or the duelist and the outlaw and Billy the Kid, my favorite person in history.
Yes.
But
Oh God.
yeah. So I like the fact that A Company of Moors takes place after Spain, because we've
Mm,
always seen, Moorish
scene.
Spain, so just
Wow.
to see them afterward,
Yeah.
because there is Stanley Lane's Poole's book, the story of the Moors in Spain, but there's also the sequel to that, is the story of the Moors after Spain.
Yeah.
And that was one of the books I read to study for A Company of Moors. So whatever your flavor is, and then 12 Stories High, there's 12 stories in there. And
Wow.
some of them do connect to the Fable Avenue Saga. Um,
Yeah,
so
I
yeah,
want you to take some of the questions. No, that was profound insight, and I don't know if you could see the question there that's on the
oh,
board about Oscar Michel.
oh yes. Would I like to direct myself? I can see Oscar Michaud directing the Fable Avenue Saga and Ronin Poetz. I can see you directing your works. Would you go? I know my lane. I'm a writer. I know people who can direct, and
Mhm.
I would. It would be great to team up with somebody who would direct, or who could direct. I could help produce and be a consultant for the
Who
work.
would be that director if you could have, alive or not, a legendary director to direct for you one of your books to turn it into a movie? Who would you pick?
I um I, I, I will say somebody, actually two people. But
Hmm.
I do think the actual person, we haven't heard of him or her yet. Um,
Ah, I love
but
that.
yeah. So I think, but I remember watching the movie From Hell, which was an adaptation of Alan Moore's comic book graphic novel. It's different from the graphic novel. It's with Johnny Depp. He's pursuing the
Hmm.
Jack the Ripper,
Yes.
um, and it was done by the Hughes brothers. And I thought
Yeah.
that they handled that time period and so very well. Actually, my wife, she watches The Gilded Age on
Oh, yeah.
HBO,
Hmm.
and Sally Richardson, which we all know in the
Yes.
'90s,
Yes.
she
Hmm.
directs it. I'm like, is that the same Sally?
Wow.
Because I think about the Ghost of Gabriel's Horn, and it's set mostly in the '50s. It arcs
Hmm.
back, not including the time periods of the what do you call it, the epic poem, because
Hmm.
it does start off in Moorish Spain, and then it
Yes.
comes through to the late 1600s Africa, and then 1700s colonial America.
Hmm.
But in the prose aspect of it, it has it starts off in the '50s, arcs back to the late 19 teens, and then
Yeah.
comes up through the '30s, and then comes
Hmm.
back to the '50s. And so I just think about who could handle history, even if we were supposed to do, yeah, A Company of Moors or something to that effect. I don't know if that person's around yet, or that person that person isn't here.
Okay. Well, great. We have another question. What book should I read, Abdullah says, to become a storyteller?
Oh, I think I know him from
Hmm.
Facebook.
Yeah, that's Brother
uh,
Abdul. Hmm.
Um, yeah. We always going back and forth. It's cool. Um, I don't know about a how-to book or where to become a storyteller. I learned because I just observed and imitated what I saw until I made it my own.
Mm,
And I knew I wanted to tell a story. So I was determined to understand how someone else told their story if I liked their story. Whether they told it in the medium of a novel, a short story, they told it as a comic book, whether they told it as a movie,
mhm,
a mini series. I always liked looking at behind the scenes, or the author. So to me, I couldn't say which book to learn how to tell a story. You can always go get something very simple, like Joseph Campbell's
Oh yeah.
the
Hero's
hero's
journey.
journey,
Journey.
the hero's
Yes.
journey, and that can really help
Because
because it'll talk
believe it or
about
not, yeah,
the
most of the
archetypes.
movies that you're watching is based on the hero's journey. If you think about
Yeah,
Hollywood, they use that step program to take you through the story in a movie. And if
yeah,
you think about the components in the hero's journey, that is what Hollywood movies take you through. They take you through the beginning stages, and then there's the challenge that enters, and then it's the obstacles, and then there is the revenge, and then there is the comeback, the rise
yeah,
again, and then there is the triumph. It goes through the whole story of the hero's journey. That is some
absolutely.
foundational pieces, which actually came from a lot of the ancient mythology that came out of Kemet.
Yes.
There were books called the Book of Kemet. And in that book is the
Hmm.
book of poetry, where they talk about these short stories, but they're based on what was happening in everyday life and the people,
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Hmm.
So yeah, because you go to the school of our men and they talk to you about
Yes.
Hercules who becomes
Yes.
Hercules, and they tell you about
Hmm.
his 12 labors and all this, and then you go to Amen Ra, which is the hidden light revealed. They're like, well, when he was battling Leo, or when he was
Hmm.
battling a lion, that was the sun, and Leo at
Yes.
this time, and that's when we plant the harvest and we do this. And they how they in book 2 in Fable Avenue Saga, there is a how they handle the holidays. Because I did a
Yes.
lecture on holidays, and I know a lot of people like to talk about sort of the destructive aspects of the holidays and sort of the quote unquote European origins of the holidays, but they still began with us, and there's a benevolent aspect to them. And so
Yes.
when I did my lecture on holidays, I did it like that. Like, no, Thanksgiving was about the harvest, and Halloween
Yes.
was about the harvest, and the trick or treat was, if it was in abundance, you'd get a treat,
Yes.
and kids would
Yes.
go around, they dress up as the gods and go to different houses, and people would give them treats if there was an
Treats.
abundance of the harvest. If there was uh, if there was not that great of a harvest, well, that was the trick. Like, I'm
That was
sorry,
the trick. Yeah, you didn't
that
get
was
the
it.
treat. You
Yeah,
didn't get.
Seth, came in
Yes.
and burned the harvest, or did something wasn't done right, or just it's a
Mhm.
bad year, and that got taken around the world and became Samhain and Halloween, and
Mhm.
so I made sure of that aspect within Fable Avenue.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Uh, Another question, how can I get a hold of your lectures? Because I tried to get it through the internet, but they keep sending me the wrong lecture.
I don't have any of my lectures. I wish I
You
did.
don't. You don't.
No, I
Someone
don't.
has them. Somebody does.
Somebody has. Now,
Somebody.
I have them technically written out.
Right,
And
but
I
not the.
also, yeah,
Mhm.
not the actual lectures. I do have them in book form. Unfortunately, probably most likely won't ever publish them. I have 3 books that go beyond what I did. The first book sums up all the lectures I did, and the other 2
Mhm.
were things I was going to do. Right now there's no scheduling of those books being put out. I wrote those early 2000s to 2000. Um, yeah, the early 2000s when I was doing my lectures. 2004 is when I wrote the first one, and then while I was writing a lot of this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I
They're
don't
saying,
know.
"Send the book forms." They said, "We don't care. Send the book forms.
Send the
We
book
want
for.
more. We want more. They want more." And
Yeah.
so, Ghetto Physics 777 says, "Where can we find some of the brothers' comics, or are they available online? Do you have any of your
You
comic
can.
books?"
Everything is as a novel. Fable Avenue was supposed to be a comic book, but it became a book
Mhm.
of a 4-part series of books. Uh, Amazon, everything. You can go to authorjustinthomas.com. You can order through them. That'll take you to my distributor, and you can order through the distributor. A little cheaper than Amazon, although it's not like 2-day shipping, but you'll get the
Yeah.
book. um, the Ronin Poetz, it doesn't say it's available online, and I didn't print that book up, so it's not. I don't have that.
Yeah.
That's the Chosen Publishing. But if you want to read the Ronin Poetz, it is in Ronin God's Dial 13 with a compilation of the other poems that epic poems that I've created. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of. I'm looking at the posters. It's a lot of.
Yes. Yeah,
Because
you
I
gotta.
know it's hard to keep straight because I have epic poems, I have short stories, I have novels, and then I have a series of novels, the Fable Avenue Saga, which adds up to this one giant story. And
Mhm.
so I know it's like I'm flipping around, but yeah, I will say this: one of the easiest things to do was to create the villains.
Yeah.
The
What?
villains were very easy to create.
Very easy?
Um, yeah, the well, I will say that uh, the, in the mid '90s, when I was trying to create a comic book
Mhm.
universe, um, I I was there were two characters that I knew that they were a staple. I was having trouble with the actual main characters, the heroes,
Yes.
but when it came to the villains, and I knew. So there were two villains. They immediately became staples. Um, they're both in the Fable Avenue Saga. One of them, their husband and wife. One of them
Mhm.
is named the wife. Her original name was Bandit.
Bandit.
Uh,
Oh, I like
she
that.
could steal people's powers and then auction them off to other people for the highest bidder.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So she steals your power, then she just keeps them in this little stone, and then she holds an auction, and she does a ritual for the person who's the highest bidder, and they get infused with the power, and
Mhm.
she can control them a little bit, so it's a bit of a failsafe in case they try to turn on her. And in Fable Avenue, her name is Lucretia Tolvaj, and
Mhm.
her surname Tolvaj is from an Eastern European language. I forget which one, but
Mhm.
it means thief or bandit. And
Mm.
the husband's name was Breed, and he could conjure demons from other dimensions. In truth, they were actually angels. But when they
Ah,
came through the doorway, he's evil. They came through his doorway, they turned into demons.
wow.
And I can't reveal his name in Fable Avenue. It's a bit of a spoiler for people who want the people who
Want the
read it.
experience to read it.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
know who these characters are in chronological order from the first to the second book and the third and the fourth. Um, but there was also another way that I created my villains. There was a trick that I did when I because like I said, in 2003 2004 I kind of put this world together. It wasn't 100% this Fable Avenue Saga, but it was getting there. I had
Yes.
named it the New Ancients, and
Mm.
I put it on hold, but I knew I had something. I'm like, no, this is it. I don't know what it is, but it's it. And one way I created villains was I was going to take the heroes I grew up with and make them villains. If that makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I was going to let me see my notes because I just want to make sure I get this correctly. Um,
And then I want you to answer this question because whoever this is, they know your work through and through, because they are telling them, they say, I have all of them, Tef. But
oh
correct me if
yeah,
I'm
Kuma,
wrong.
yeah, Kuma,
Yeah, he says holidays, computer blue,
yeah.
matriarch versus patriarch, the paradigm of heroes, and Caucasian schizophrenia. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you can bootleg them and instead of putting them on the internet, just throw them out to whoever wants them.
No, no, no,
But
no, no, no. We want to support. We definitely want to support. We want our own copies of them,
yeah,
for sure, for sure. And so people can go to the website. You can go to Amazon and you can do that, but you can also go to the website author Justin Thomas, and
Yeah, my
that
works are there. Yes.
and you can connect there and you can get your book. I see many
Yeah.
of them are talking about possibly doing a book club. And
Oh,
with
cool.
one of the books in the book club, fall season, we all want to get a good read in
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
get the book club. And, definitely I'm going to tap back into the books as soon as I get them as well. And
Mm.
maybe have you come back. We can maybe do something collective here. I know we're going to be giving away a few books here tonight as well for a couple of people. And then we can come back, maybe have you come back and really kind of help. I'm sure we're going to have some good, juicy questions about what's really going on.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. That'll be fun. That'll be fun.
Hmm.
But yeah, the trick was to going back to the villains.
Hmm.
Um, make with the exception of Breed and Bandit, they were staples. All the villains were going to be based on the heroes that I grew up admiring,
Got
and
it.
it wasn't sort of a statement like. I mean, it was a statement. I was going to kill my heroes, and it was going to be an act of kindness. Um, but it wasn't sort of a militant statement. Especially, it wasn't even like, oh, the X-Men, they really, based on, the Black civil rights and Xavier, he's from
Right.
Martin Luther King. And it wasn't anything like that. Or Spider-Man's really a Nazi and we're going to kill them off and put in the real heroes. It was just, it was more of a maturing, dare I say, pretentious writer's statement. I was letting my heroes go.
Yeah.
I said it was my divorce papers. A friend of mine who's also a writer and working on some things. He'll have some things out.
Yes.
He was like, there are declarations of war. I was like, oh. Hey, I was being nice. But then, no, I like that too,
Yes,
so,
yes, yes. Hmm.
but they did what they did for me and, inspiration and all. And now it was time for me
Yes.
to create my heroes, create my own heroes, which is something I was doing all along anyway.
Yes.
And so it was going to be me or it was going to be my heroes killing off my heroes.
Wow.
So,
I love it. I love
and
it.
that's just how it had to start off in the beginning in my head. It wasn't
Mhm.
because that idea gets lost in translation. I made some really great characters out of it that get used in the Fable Avenue Saga.
Yes.
Um, but their use wasn't for that. It was, so you're not going to see an evil Wolverine running around or an evil Spider-Man or Jean Grey.
Right.
You know, there's nothing like that. But some of the villains did start off in that capacity and then
Yes.
shave them down to make them my own characters anyway.
Yes.
And coincidentally, around the time I was creating all this, 2003, 2004, it was when I was slowing down on buying comic books because sort of an
Mm.
aside, it's like in the spirituality or the religion of my writing, my holy trinity is like beginning, middle, and end.
Yes.
And I just think that stories should just come to a conclusion, even if they don't sound definitive. Like I
Yes.
think I'm the only person when like everything went black on The Sopranos. I was like, oh my god, I hope there's credits. I hope there's credits. And then like the last episode, and then the credits came up. I was like, this is the best. This is the
This
best
is the
thing ever.
best. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sometimes
like
things need to close out for other new things to begin.
yeah.
I think about that in my journey of the remix and
Oh
doing all
yes.
of those years and closing that chapter out so this new chapter of All About Frequency can open up and a new saga has
Yeah.
begun. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so necessary. It's so necessary. It is. It is. It's
Yeah.
healthy. It's healthy. It shows your growth. It puts you on another journey. You can see where you've grown because you're challenged in a new way, in a profound way. I want to give a big shout out to King Simon in the building
Mm,
as well. He's in the
all right.
building and giving you shouts out as well. Yeah,
Mm.
powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the reasons why. I mean, it took a while, but it was one of the reasons why I stopped reading comic books.
Mm.
Um, because it was a hamster wheel. It just kept going and
Yeah.
going and going and going,
Kept
and that's just
going and
fine.
going and going. It's like, when is it
Yeah.
gonna end,
When is it going to end? Is there anything going to be permanent? Is there
Right.
anything? Are there consequences? And Even
Yeah.
consequences get undone because they have a magic machine that makes people walk again after they've been shot. And
Yeah.
so so I wanted to, and there are some comic books that do end, but I
Mhm.
wanted something within this to come to a definitive ending. So there won't be a Fable Avenue book 5. That you
Would you
won't see.
say it just
There almost was, but it became
Oh.
what will be my cosmic story. Actually, I was playing sort of ping pong because the plot started off as like a what if, because I knew I wasn't going to do it, but a what if there was a Fable Avenue book 5. And then I'm
Right.
like, no, I'll save that for my space opera. And then I went, no, I'll bring it back to Fable Avenue, but it'll happen in book 4, and certain things that happen. So it just kept getting volleyed back and forth.
Back and forth.
But yeah, so I knew even when I started this, I was like, it's gonna have an ending. When it was at first supposed to be a comic book,
Mm.
but that is sort of the story of the New Ancients going into. The
Mhm.
Ghost of Gabriel's Horn is its own kind of thing. It is a story
Mm.
that is offset from the other 3 novels. The other 3 novels, Brooklyn's Lilac, Brew, Love's Path, and now in the 4th book,
Yeah.
they take place in modern times. There are little tricks where I'm able to arc the story back to. They're called historical chapters, so they're separate. They're there to allow the world to be fleshed out, and also
Yes.
they're being viewed by one of the characters in the modern time, so
Wow.
they get to learn something, and then they find an answer to whatever they're looking for by
Mhm.
studying history. And
Wow.
but it mostly takes place in contemporary times.
Yeah.
So when it came to the first book, going back to college when I was doing performance poetry, there was a night where I wrote down this line. It's and I just stared at it for the longest time. Senior year, I was at LSU by this time, and I had the room to myself because my roommate moved out. He wasn't
Yeah.
there a lot, anyways. He was a freshman. I was a senior. He was
Yeah.
cool. He was cool, but he just
Yeah.
decided to move out. So I had the
Yeah.
room to myself, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this line down, and I didn't know what it was, and I just stared at it, and I didn't know whether it was. I didn't know if it was a title. I didn't know if it was like supposed to be just a line in a poem.
I
I
hate when
didn't
that
know if it was.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was supposed to be fleshed out. I had no
Right.
clue, but I knew I liked the line,
Yes.
and it was the Ghost of Gabriel's Horn.
Wow.
And I tried to insert it into every little poem I wrote, where it would make sense. I did put it in my second narrative epic poem, To Enlighten the Gods, but then I rewrote it later on, especially when I started writing The Ghost of Gabriel's Horn.
Yes.
Then, in early 2000, I was
Mm.
watching PBS, and there was this, I think Lauryn Hill, Chuck D, and then there
Mm.
was this other brother who I didn't know who he was. He was just a music historian. There was somebody else there. I want to say it was Clive Davis, but I'm not sure.
Yes.
Um, and the brother was talking about jazz, and he compared jazz players to Jedi Knights from Star Wars. And I was like,
Wow.
excuse me. It like totally had my attention, like right there.
Of
I'm like,
course.
I've got
Yes.
to hear this. So he starts talking about how like the instruments are their lightsabers and how they can like
Wow.
do improv and do all this stuff with the music in real time, and how they maneuver through the music. That's the Force. And I went, keep talking. keep talking. I like
Oh,
had
wow.
like an outline that night.
Wow. Powerful.
And the Ghost of Gabriel's Horn first started off as a short screenplay
Mm.
for a short film, and then in 2003, 2004, there's always that year. I
Mhm.
started a feature length of it, and I got about 40, 45 pages in,
Mhm.
and then I stopped because life just happened. And so at that same time, I had this New Ancients. I wrote out 4 issues of a comic book. I had these different styles of screenplays for this thing called The Ghost of Gabriel's Horn.
Yes.
And I had these 2 interlocking pieces of the puzzle, but I didn't know they went together.
Mhm.
It
Wow.
was,
Wow.
I was
Yes.
and I had to sit on it for a while. And at the same time, I also started my third narrative epic poem, The Sundial Tone. And I got a
Mm.
few pages on that, and I just put it aside. So at this point, again, 2003, 2004, I got all these pieces of the puzzle, not even realizing I'm making this great sandwich. They're all stacked up on one another.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I started writing 12 Stories High, because The Ghost of Gabriel's Horn was going to be turned into a short story.
Ah.
Um,
Mhm.
and then I realized the story itself of these jazz players, or this one jazz musician who has a magic trumpet,
Mm.
it would go well with um, my third narrative epic poem, and it would serve as the past life for the characters that are in the story.
Wow.
And I said, okay, when he plays these songs, he sees the past life of these characters, himself as well. At first, it
Right.
started off as a novella, and then it grew into an actual novel. It would be 90 to 120 pages, plus woven into its narrative fabric would be the sundial tone.
Mm.
And they would take, it would take moments where it would go from prose narrative to an epic poem.
Yes.
And when I write a manuscript, I always think about what comes after. Um, Especially now, because I'm publishing.
Right. So you
What does the
do the
audience?
quantum leap, the time travel into the future.
Absolutely, absolutely, because I have to, because I am sort of there. I'm
Mhm.
already writing the next work. The
Wow.
beautiful scene in the documentary of the Phantom Menace when it first came out on DVD. It shows a theater. There's people gathered to watch the first Star Wars film in 16 years.
Wow.
And the lights go down. You see everybody have their little fake lightsabers lit up, and they're screaming. And it says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And then that's opening music, and that crawl, and everybody's flipping out. And then it cuts to Skywalker Ranch. George Lucas is
Mhm.
at his desk, and he opens a notebook, and he just writes episode 2. He doesn't have a title for it yet. He needs exterior space opening crawl, because while everybody's enjoying what he just put out, he's at the next project, and that's
He's at
like
the next.
everybody who's an
Yes.
artist.
And isn't that, I was going to say, that's the creative process. I know for
Yeah,
me, when I'm putting something out and just introducing it, I'm already on the next. I'm already
yeah,
in the
yeah.
future on the next project that is there. Pure Feminine Energy just said, oh, I just read the Kindle's free sample of The Ghost of Gabriel's Horns. It's
Oh,
got
that's
my
great.
vote. So
Wow,
she is definitely purchasing that. It's got her vote and
wow,
she's getting it. So beautiful,
wow.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and when you're doing that, and thank you, by the way, thank you so much, very much. I hope you enjoy. It's weird because suddenly you become responsible when somebody says they have your work or they've read your work. You're like, oh no, because you're like, oh no, everything's good, everything's fine, but you just feel so responsible.
Hmm.
It's like the most responsible I've ever felt as an adult when I see that people have got my work. But I'm also very happy, and thank you very much. Um,
Mm.
and
Oh,
it is great when you're working on one thing and thinking about another. And you learn how to quantum leap, and you're
yes.
spinning the plates of what's going on, and
Yes.
it is spinning the plates of creativity, and it's really, really, really fun. I like
Mm.
that chaos.
Yes.
And when I was putting together 12 Stories High, I'd come up with Code 47 and a Company of Mords at the same time, and I kind of
Wow.
knew what would come first, because I knew I couldn't follow up a Company of Mords as big as
Big
it
as
was
it
with,
was.
yeah,
Yes.
with Code 47. Code 47 is deep, but it's very
Mhm.
lighthearted. It's very, fun.
Yeah.
It's cats on the block talking, and it's fun what they're doing. But like, it can't come after a Company of Mords. Like,
Morse. Yeah.
what I mean? Like, you can't do that. Like, so but so I knew, and plus I knew a Company of Mords was going to take a lot of research. And since it's about
Yeah.
2 years when I, from start to finish in publishing, editing, writing, editing, publishing, it takes about 2 years. I knew that was a good amount of time for me to
Yeah.
actually, get to know a company of Moors a little bit better and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. But then when I hit a
Beautiful.
company of Moors, I was like, well, what comes after that? Because I know my writing has to mature when I do a company of Moors.
Yeah.
I have to now go, well, what's going to come after that? And because it
Would
just
you say
can't be
what's
no,
next? What's
yeah,
next?
what's it going to be?
Yeah.
And when I was putting together the Ghost of Gabriel's Horn, I was, you know, I combined it with the sundial tone, the narrative epic, and I knew this would be a very poignant tale, a touching, sentimental tale,
Yeah.
something otherworldly, magical, and it might not have the flash at first of a company of Moors, but
Right. Right.
you are involved in something that, like I said with that Final Fantasy quote, like it's going to
Mhm.
go to places you can't imagine. Um,
Wow.
and at the same time, I was trying to connect it to the New Ancients, which I started to dust off.
Yeah.
And somebody has a question here.
Yes. Brittany Vide says, yes. Have you ever thought about turning your works into audiobooks? There it is. There
Yes,
it
it, it,
is.
it is in the works, but it
I
is in the
love it.
works.
And
It is in the works.
you're such a great orator. Like I just that poetry piece you did and in a perfect world, Justin, I would love for you to do a piece for us. If you have one that you would love to share. I mean, you did that for us earlier and it was listen, it was everything. Um
Thank you.
but to even hear because your mind is so vast. I can tell that we need to take this and we need to take this in sagas. Like you come on and kind of give us this
Yeah,
introduction and then come back and really educate us on your process because it's so much that goes into this. It's not just
yeah.
about
It's a lot
having
of
a
moving
creative
parts.
mind, the research, the study and yes, writer's block. Absolutely. Someone just said it. Yeah, writer's block is legendary. Absolutely. And just your writing style and how you craft everything together and how everything is interconnected. It is the world, when we think about the world and then sort of how you build these characters out and these villains. Like I'm excited to read their stories and the heroes, of course, in there. And then I love the pairing. I remember when I first started studying work with Siba Haru and Brother Ogun and many others. This was way back in the online days where you could take classes and learn about all these great things, and we didn't have all of this social media. And one of the things I remember in the beginning of my studies, they said, in Egypt, wherever there was a masculine figure, there would always be a feminine aspect. Like there would be a pair, there would be, the consorts, they would be there. And you brought that into your work where you bring sort of that feminine energy and that masculine energy, that component together in a very beautiful way. Even I love that you brought them even as villains together,
Yeah.
and even on the other side of the journey. But so significant when I think about what you were saying about your mother and your father and just, their pairings of even from going to different schools and universities that were kind of rivals and then how you brought that into the astrology is like you brought all worlds together, which is something the world is just now learning how to do, is to sort of take that scientific world and that spiritual world and merge them together as one and allow it to unfold, with the creative aspect and a little bit of chaos in there, which is,
Absolutely.
really the times that we're living in, right now. That's
Yeah.
profound, work that's so ahead of itself. I remember Brother Panic had said that. He said, you know, Tef, because that's, wasn't
Yeah.
it? How do you say it?
It's who pharaohs are.
Yes, I could never say it. I promise
That's all
you.
right. That's
I
all right.
could never say it. Um, that your work was way ahead of its time, way ahead of its time. And I really know in my Oracle essence, your time is now. Like a lot of this work you put
Yes.
out. Yes, a lot of people enjoyed it then, but yeah, yes, this is. I'm surprised. Book TikTok has not got a whim of this, but I'm sure we got some book TikTokers here, and they definitely will be diving in because I'm sitting here like a kid, like okay. I'm gonna have to get in my I'm gonna have to get in my reading bag here. But I want us to take some more questions. You guys give some more questions, and Tef is going to be gifting away 3 books, and he will pick
Yep.
the winners and he will pick the books. And we just want you guys to ask some questions. If you have some questions, put your questions in. I know you have been asking questions. We love that. We absolutely love that. But we're going to officially start it now. Officially started now. Mm, yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. All right, you guys. And don't forget, you can follow Justin on social media. You can go to his website, authorjustinthomas.com. You can connect with him on social. Please make sure you do that so you can keep up. Please support, grab one of these books. He will be back to discuss, and we're going to be talking about them because I really want to get into a lot of these books and get some of this magic going in here because it's a lot in there. It's a whole lot. He did a lot of channeling in there. Whew! I'm just like, whoa! It is a lot. It is a lot. Yes, yes, absolutely.
In terms of like a writer's block can come in many different forms. It's
Yes,
not just like you don't know what to write. Sometimes it's too many things to write. You don't know where to begin. This, that, and the other.
yes.
I tend to get writer's fatigue.
Mm,
Like I just was a little burnt out. I like I don't always note it, but I like when I'll write something and it's
mhm,
published and it's out there, and I'll still be I'll go back through it.
mhm.
Because many authors make changes even after a book
Yeah, I was
is
gonna
is
ask you,
published.
did you ever write something and felt the need like, I need to change this. I need to
Oh
either
yeah,
take away, update, or change or put something else in there?
yeah. The Fable Avenue Saga. As much as I had a bunch of ideas, I didn't want to overload the first book with them, and I got to the second book and I said, you could go back and just kind of insert aspects to the the people who are involved in this world know of these things, but they might not be in whole use as of yet. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of villains known as the Needlemen,
Ooh,
and we get to know them more in book 2. They
yes.
have needles that are infected with hex, and they can stab you, and they can drain your power, turn your power against you. They can, and in the first book, you'll hear people talk about, well, we're not going to use needles because we don't need to do that, but
Ah,
they don't you don't actually
so
see.
you
And I went
see
back
it
and kind of inserted that, but I knew it was always there. I just didn't feel like overwhelming the first book with a lot of things that were going to come
in the
and
next
hinted at.
books.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I didn't want to. There was although it takes place in the past, it's one of the historical chapters. There's a an outlaw and his crew known as Brother John and the Thunder Dogs, or Thunder John and the Brother Dogs. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Thunder John and the Thunder John and the Brother Dogs, and I'm like, I'm not going to mention them at all in book 1, and I mentioned
Right.
them a bunch of times as I
I
started,
know.
right, because I didn't want like the excitement of what their story is going to be about to
To take
just
away from
to take
yeah.
away. But I said, oh no, I kind of know. I didn't go back and insert them. I did it as I was writing, and I found the correct people to talk about them. And
Mm,
and I said, oh, okay, because one of the people who's in the book, his name is Joseph Pepper the Fourth, and
mhm.
he's based on 4 people. That's why he's called Joseph Pepper the Fourth. 2 people
Wow.
are fictional and 2 people are real.
Yeah.
Uh, he's very erudite adventurer in the late, throughout the 1900s, and we get to see him for a brief moment in the Ghost of Gabriel's Horn. He gifts his sweetheart, his fiance,
Mhm.
Her name is Teresa Amat. She's this amazing jazz singer from Waterbug Hollow, and he gives her what is known as Califia's veil.
Wow.
Califia, we know is the goddess, and what California is
Yes.
named after, the black goddess.
Yes.
And in this world as well, it is an ancient tribe of black women who were in America, and they have a brother tribe as well. The brother dogs are from that tribe. But
Yes.
he gives her Califia's veil, and he talks about he had an adventure with Thunder John and the brother dogs.
Wow.
And she's a little skeptical. She's like, "Hey, come on,
Yeah.
didn't he die at such a certain time? You would have been like 26 years old." And he's just like, "Yeah,
Right.
but yeah." So, is there any Viking mythology in your books?
Yeah.
I haven't gone there yet. Maybe for the space opera, but a lot of mythology coincides with
With a lot of Viking mythology.
yeah,
Yeah.
with a lot of Norse mythology and things of that nature. An aspect of that is in the Ghost of Gabriel's horn and throughout the rest of the saga. The horn can only be
Mm.
lifted by people of a certain lineage, the Peters
Ah.
family. So Pete Peters was the original person who could lift the hammer when it fell from the sky, or the horn when it fell from the
Mhm.
sky, and then his son, who the first book, The Ghost of Gabriel's Horn, mostly follows. He's able to pick it up, after his father. So it's like Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. So in that sort of Norse mythology, that
Mhm.
only Thor can lift his hammer, or his father Odin. It has things like that.
Yeah. Khalifa.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Joseph Pepper. He's Joseph Pepper the Fourth. He's based after two fictional characters. He's based after are Sherlock Holmes and Indiana Jones. And then the
Ah.
two real characters are Pascal Beverly Randolph and Jose V. Pimienta Bay. If anybody's ever read his book, Othello's Children and the New World, he's a professor, many different colleges. He's spoken at many different
Yes.
colleges, and
I've heard of him. Yeah.
professor. Yeah, I've corresponded with him a couple times. And in fact, Joseph Pepper is the Anglicized name of Jose Pimienta. It's Joseph Pepper.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was like, oh, that's the English version. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna take that. But yeah, so he's a composite of those four characters, and he's the adventurer, and he's the one that's sort of a Don Quixote like character that we meet real quick in book one. But because of the historical chapters in book two, we go back and we get to know his story more.
More to go deep in.
Yes, yeah, go
Mm.
deeper into who he is and the people he's faced and things of that nature.
Mhm.
It was such a blast to create this. And even as I was putting it together, the Fable Avenue Saga, and at first it was supposed to be, the New Ancients, supposed to be a comic book. But I had a problem, and that
Yeah.
problem was is I can write, but I can't draw. And it was just me. So, but luckily, I thought about a solution that was sort of presented to me in seventh grade. A friend of mine
Mm.
introduced me to a sci-fi fantasy book series called Wild Cards. It was a world
Oh,
of
I've
superpowered beings. Yeah,
mhm.
and
Mhm.
it's actually created by George R. R. Martin. Song of Ice and
Mm.
Fire became Game of Thrones, and
Yes.
co-created as well by Melinda M. Snodgrass. And they created this sort of world. It was post World War II. This event happens
Mhm.
in New York City. People become blessed with superpowers, or they die immediately. Those people were called. They drew the Black Queen, and then there were people called Jokers, and they're all deformed. And then the people
Mm.
with superpowers are called Aces. And they got other people, other sci-fi and fantasy writers to contribute. And I think there's like 34 books. I read the first 8,
Yes.
and I um I was like, well, okay, they, they kind of created a world with super beings, and
Yes.
they're not, they couldn't
Mm.
draw, but they made it
They
into
did
books, and
it.
that's what
They did it.
yeah,
So
I could do that.
so you're a big reader yourself.
Mhm.
Would you say you're a big reader yourself? Do you think that interferes in your process, or do you think it helps your own process as a writer? I know a lot of writers will say that they tend to not read books because they want to focus on what they're doing and not sort of have that influence. But it seems like you've done a great job of being able to separate others' work from your work, in a way.
I I'm sort of like that now with a lot of things,
Mhm.
but in the beginning, I mean, it was just reading before, especially before I got into writing like manuscripts and things like that. So I was absorbing as much as possible and sort of learning what to do.
Yes. Mhm.
Even before I started writing screenplays, like my oldest brother, he had bought the Malcolm X screenplay, a bunch of Spike Lee screenplays. I bought a bunch of Quentin Tarantino screenplays and just looked at their format and what they did. I
Wow.
had the original Star Wars screenplays, and sometimes you could come across stores that were selling them, and just looking at the format, how they did it, the pacing, and then just sort of imitated that that style over time, because there's a comic book series that it did end. It's now on. It's now an animated show on Amazon called Invincible.
Mm.
And when that came out, I'm like, I want to read it so bad, but I was like, I don't want it. I don't want it to influence
Right, right.
Fable Avenue,
Yeah.
especially with Gordon Goodspeed and
Mhm.
Faye Forrester's story and who they are. It's like, no, I'll wait until after
And
I
then
will,
read it. Yeah.
and then
So
I'll
you
read
were
it,
a
which I
fan,
still
you
have
were
planned.
fans of the genres that's similar to your genre. Speaking of
Mhm.
which, if you had a category for your genre, what would it be? If you could
Dustin
create a
Thomas.
category for it, because it is so diverse and what you cover,
Yeah.
and mixing so many things. We got the elements of hip hop, we have the spirituality, and then we have the historical piece that comes into play. We also have the lores that comes into play,
Mhm.
and we have sci-fi that comes into play. We have the cosmic and the galactic element that comes into play, but then we have the really down to earth human everyday experience that comes into
Mhm.
play. So if you could give it its own genre, what does that look like for Justin? What genre would that be?
On my website, and for a long time I've been calling it science function because the stories serve
I
a
love
purpose.
that. Science function. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if I see a story, I write it. Um, but I have narrowed it down two categories. I have histories, I have epic poems, I have a fantasy epic that spans four
Mhm.
books. I have a sci-fi, or it will be sci-fi, or a space opera, and
Mhm.
and then I'll have more history books and or
Yes.
epic historical fiction, and and then there'll be, and I think all of it is kind of coming of age as
Yeah.
well. The influence of, you have somebody like John Hughes who could give us The Breakfast Club, but also give us Weird Science and Ferris Bueller's
Yeah,
Day
at the
Off, and those are
same time,
three
yes.
totally different films. So and they're all coming of age, and
Yes,
I that sort of has been my influence. Like, you look at Star Wars, it has romance, it has action, it has
it does.
horror, it
It
has
does.
all of these things like the best story should. Or you look at old mythology, it has horror.
This
Like,
is true.
Osiris gets split into 14 pieces. That's terrifying.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
so, but then they're also battling with like rays of light from the sun, and that's like
Mm,
really cool. So like
yeah,
it has all these elements. That's what mythology has. And even when
yeah.
you have something like A Company of Moors, or I used to call Code 47 Memoirs of a Hip Hop Heist, to some degree science fiction, because it is sort of, they're using the elements of some machines or science to uh, and music, and how to create that to take
Mhm,
back and open up people's minds and things like that. But it in and of itself is coming of age. It's a heist.
mhm.
It's a heist a story. So yeah, I think in the best of stories, they give us everything,
Yeah, I
as
love
much as they
it.
possibly can without
As much as
overstuffing.
they
But yeah,
can. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's just how I learned, and and to do that, to balance all of those elements in one story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
So, but yeah, there was also, oh gosh, should I talk about this?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there was there's also the bad.
Mm.
There's also stuff
Mm.
that's just not good, even if it's our own output. A kick in the butt for Fable Avenue. I mean, I knew I was going to do it anyways. I knew I was going to write it,
Mm-hmm.
but 2007, I was living in Atlanta. My wife and I were, just getting together. We were renting a house.
Yes.
We were working out there. We were doing our thing. And one night we found ourselves in Barnes and Noble. And
Oh.
I found a magazine that kind of showcased this book.
Mm-hmm.
It was a
Mm-hmm.
write up of a book. And this is young adult book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a black author.
Okay.
It's about a kid with superpowers.
Okay.
But it was kind of corny. And I was a little disappointed in it. It is and this is like a very vital element to the storytelling. I think you spoke of it early, like, things that are missing, things that are coming
Yeah.
out now, and the importance of putting these things out there.
Yeah.
It just was, I don't know about giving an A for effort, but it was just filled with a lot of cliches. It looked like it was written by a bunch of suit and tie people, like corporate guys in a board
Yeah.
meeting. The password is white people,
Yeah.
and it just had that element. And I swear to you, it wasn't this. I'm not going to describe what the book was. I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
I do remember elements from it and what it was written about. And there were excerpts. It was okay.
Yeah.
And again, it was written as a young adult novel, but still, it just wasn't there. But
It
I
wasn't.
swear to you,
Mm.
it was as if somebody was like, okay, it's going to be a black hero. He's going to be like Popeye. But instead of spinach, it's collard greens and watermelon and chicken that give him his superpower.
Oh no.
And he like got a magic pair of Jordans and a 90s starters jacket that's bulletproof. It was that bad.
Oh no.
It was like, wasn't quite in tune with what was going on with the youth. They just released a Smurfs movie, I think.
Yes, Rihanna actually
Oh
is
yeah,
in
she
it.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
She did one of the voice.
Yeah, she did Smurfette, and I was watching a review of it. The reviewer, he had some things to say, but he did say something that caught me. He said it felt like it was written by somebody who doesn't quite. He's too old to understand what kids like.
Wow.
And I was like, ooh, and that's what this felt like. And I know as Black people, I'm gonna step carefully through this minefield because this can go off real quick.
Okay.
I know that sometimes we have very little, so sometimes we take what we're given, especially if it, again, has that stamp of approval of like mainstream audience and corporate backing, and once again the password. And I've coined a phrase. I think I coined a phrase. I call it Black hero anemia. And that's when you suffer from the lack of Black representation. It doesn't have to be in superhero genres or anything like that.
Right. It could just be in anything. Yeah.
Anything. But you suffer from such a lack of representation. You take anything without question.
Got it. It doesn't matter. Subpar.
Doesn't matter.
It's just the fact that it has Black on it. We're going to accept it. We're going to crown it king, and we're just going to ride out in the sunset with it because we're just so happy to get something. Throw us a bone,
Yeah. And
that kind of thing.
It's hard for me, like I say, to navigate through that because and it's funny because like a lot of people, a lot of especially a lot of black people, conscious black people, we like the Matrix, and we talk about the scene where Morpheus says, well, people will defend the system even though the system's killing them or whatever. He's telling Neo about this. And then you go, oh yeah, that reminds me, such and such and such. And then suddenly they start defending it. And you're trying to tell them the emperor has no clothes. And they get very, very, very upset. And then they think you're just jealous of something's success or you're a hater.
Right,
And we have those
right.
limited vocabulary and emotionally stunted sort of aspects. And it's just like, but like I said, I've I've sort of stopped being so critical because I know that, movies are hard, and anybody who's out there making
Mhm.
something that has black people in a television show, or a film, they have to navigate the racism of Hollywood, and then on top of
Well,
that,
do you
oh
but do you think that is still relevant in a place where we have platforms like YouTube and we have Instagram and we have TikTok where we can change the narrative? I mean, you've been doing this before all of this came about 20 years ago.
yeah,
So
oh
there have been, I think we can not accept what
mhm.
we feel is not a good representation. That's what brings people like myself into action to make a
Oh
difference
yeah,
in these spaces.
absolutely,
Yourself to
absolutely.
bring people in this difference. As a writer, I
Hmm.
understand how your vision and your eye is completely different because it's so much soul that goes into what you do. It is not just I'm writing a book because I'm a writer.
Hmm.
You get it? There are writers
Yeah.
who write because they're good at writing and they just
Yes.
write. And then there is those that's able to put the soulful or what I call the soulfulness in the work that you're doing. And you have brought your soul to it. So it becomes very personal to you because you are here to really, I'm good. You're going to laugh at this, move the needle when it comes to what we understand of what we
Somebody
understand.
outside driving hard.
I hear it. They're moving the needle, moving the needle forward. That's spirit showing up for us.
Zoom.
You have moved the needle into what it looks like to pick up a novel, something that the world has revished over when we think about people like the movie Star Wars or we think about Game of Thrones and we think about these great sagas and we revel in the minds of the individual who crafted this. And yet we have a brother like you, Justin, you've been crafting this for well over 20 plus longer than that since you've been 4 years old. You've been doing that. You understand. And so let me ask you, do you feel, and I want you to think about this question for somebody who's been at the helm of seeing what we call the Black community, the conscious community, if you see this rise and being around so much of this environment in the great, do you feel like you have gotten the support
Um,
that your work has warranted from the Black community?
yes, when I am on shows like or programs or broadcasts like this, or Brother Shabazz says, "Hey, come out and speak," and there is support. I could use a publicist who could go out and
Right.
get more stuff for me. But at the end of the day, when I get noticed, absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely,
But prior to you being noticed, because they know you exist,
mhm.
do you think the support is still there? Do you think the publicist is the only big difference that it makes? What do you think the gap is between that ongoing support?
Um, sometimes it can come from a lack of support. I would say it can sometimes come from some of us need a stamp of approval by like something mainstream, like it needs an
Yeah,
award or it needs
yeah.
a higher just to
Or
say what
quote
it is, a
unquote,
white voice or
it needs a white voice to bless off
yeah,
to say
yeah,
Justin's work is up here with this person or that person, or this person is doing something that is up here with that. That
yeah,
is a real thing. And I want us all to take that in our hearts. I know you're going to get to the question that's there, but I want us
yes,
all to take that in the heart. And I think it's important that we do share as we share other things that other people, books that other people have wrote and done, especially those that we know who are what I like to call the caretakers of the culture. Because right now, the caretakers of the culture, a lot of them are transitioning out of here. And that is seems to be when they blow up. All of a sudden, you got to die. And then now you're
uh,
the hero. You understand? You
yeah,
you you have to transcend here to become the hero. Why can't we make our heroes here? It takes
yeah,
takes me back to a time I remember, and this is a debatable topic, but I think it's one we can get in here. I remember when they were talking about when it was all this talk about Kylie Jenner becoming a self-made billionaire. I think it was a billionaire. Yeah,
mhm,
self-made billionaire. And she was close. And I think Forbes or somebody had put it out. And that whole generation, white, black, Asian, which I think is beautiful, we can all come together, of her whole soul group went out and purchased her products so she
mhm,
could make that mark. And many of them said they seen her make that mark. It let them know that they can make that mark. And I
yeah,
think we
yeah,
need to hold the same sentiment. For us, it just seems culturally, we pick our superstars and that's it. We
yeah.
don't collectively hold the group up. We hold the
Yeah,
superstars up.
I've
Yeah.
seen people. In fact, there's something in 12 Stories High. I'll get to that
Mhm.
in the book where. But before I say that, yeah, like a lot of times we see somebody do it, we're like, oh, it's done.
Yes.
Instead of being like, no, that's the inspiration for you to come next. Like,
Yes.
no, now it's your turn,
Yes.
your turn, your turn, your
Right.
turn.
Right.
We see that one person do it or a group of people do it, and we think that that's it. I mean, there are some other people out here, myself included, where we're like, oh, that's inspiration. Let's keep it moving.
Yes.
Let's see what happens next. Um, I remember I was watching a documentary on Jackie Robinson,
Mm.
and they were saying the hopes of over 10,000 people were in one man. And I said, wow, that's dangerous. What if you kill that one man? What happens to all those people's hopes?
Right. Right.
And in 12 Stories High, I did that with a story called The Monk and the Moor. And the monk and
Mm.
the Moor are standing down like this army. And they're like, we're never going to get out of this. They're going to get us. And he's like, yeah, but if we can just kill their leader, they
Wow.
think if we kill their leader, their hopes are done. If we can just get him,
Mhm.
they're going to turn around because they all believe in him. If we
Yeah.
kill the belief, we can turn the army, and
Yes.
that's been sometimes done to us.
Yes.
So or there's the illusion of you can live vicariously because someone else made it.
Yes.
And instead of being like, no, there's inspiration for you to move
T-
forward.
to move
Uh,
forward. Yes.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but when there are platforms and when it's the right minded people, because I remember one time we were talking to these kids and they were and I understand, we were in Jersey, me and my publisher at the time, Tracy Wingfeld, who did the Ronin Poetz, and
Yes.
we were talking to them, and I wasn't doing the parts that might be too heavy for children,
Right.
but talking about Ronin Poetz and this battle and this, that, and the other. And then I was teaching them some stuff from ancient African mythology and things that are all over, and they were like, what? But
Yeah.
their father came out and like, I don't want you talking to my kids like that. And I understood,
Yeah.
but they were excited. But I wasn't being like, oh, you fist in the air and you got to kill the white man and
Yeah.
get you a shotgun and kill all the white you see. And I wasn't doing that.
Right.
In fact,
Right.
that like even the racism part about it never even came in. I was just saying, well, this is who you are. I wasn't even
Right.
saying they hide it in the books and you can't find it and they going I wasn't doing that. I was just,
Yeah.
look, this is something that, oh no, okay. And they were excited and they were running around and pretending like they were the warriors and had superpowers, and it's like, oh, there you go. But the father came out, and I don't want you talking to my kids like I want you people, you guys talking to my kids like that. These young black kids, and I understood he was being protective of them, but it was also kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
Even when I didn't say anything, Tracy, she had spoken, very eloquent. She spoke about what we were speaking about, but he just didn't care.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's giving the field of the message to the black man, the Malcolm X biography. Where there is a lot of people, and I've met a lot of brothers and sisters over the years, primarily brothers, who said that is what opened their consciousness and awareness, was that book, Message to the Black Man. When they read that, it sparked something in them and it opened them up, in that way. That when you were just talking about it, just kind of made me think of that. The question here that someone posed is Ya Girly Q. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. It says, I'm grateful for being introduced to your work, to the work of Justin Thomas, and I am looking forward to reading his works. Are his works appropriate for early teens? I would love to buy for my nieces and nephews. And so that kind of stems into what you were just speaking on there.
Yeah. They can have some adult things in there, even some love sequences. I would say maybe 14 plus, heavy on the plus. I mean, it all depends if you want to read them first. Candidate in the running for the free books, and you can sort of feel them out. It depends on. There's nothing graphic, but I mean, there are things in there that can be a little heavy. Because again, it's as much as it stemmed from an idea I wanted to be visual in the terms of a comic book. It became a book, and it became far more serious within that idea. So you will see a character. His name is Willie the Lick. A lick, Lich. It can also be pronounced lich. A lick or a lick king is an undead sorcerer who leads an army of undead. But Willie the Lick is. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna add, if any of these kids play video games, all of this stuff is in video games.
Oh yeah. This is fine for them.
Yeah. Hey, listen. We can go ahead and give a vote of approval on. Give it to them. Give it to them, because they have seen it, they have heard it. It's in their storyline now. It's in their storyline now. They have had it, and the name is pronounced Your Girl Q. I'm sorry, y'all. Listen, I gotta get hooked on the letters.
I was gonna say that. Let me see something. I'm saying that I'm at 20% for the battery, but it's plugged in. So for the camera.
They said we done overdid it. Somebody in the room said you guys have given here. This is what this brother said. The brother says y'all have given a new meaning to pushing the needle.
I was going to say that, especially if they watch anime, depending on what kind of anime that it is, that's real big. It was big when we were coming up, and we obviously, by the time the late 80s and early 90s, especially the manga, the comic book aspects of manga, very adult. But I mean, I don't know if sometimes I was like, oh, this is kind of intense. But something like Fist of the North Star, somebody punches somebody and their head explodes. I don't quite have violence, sort of not, maybe a little bit like that.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
It is fine. It is definitely fine. One thing is for sure, they will learn something about themselves and the world. And, that's what books do. It helps to expand our consciousness and awareness. And if for nothing else, it gets you to asking questions. Books really get you to dive in deep and start doing some self exploration and asking questions. So, listen, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to let you decide who you want to give the books to. And
I think
yeah,
that last question was good.
that last question was great.
Yeah, considering, and also you can read the books for yourself first before you give them to the niece and nephew, just in case.
Yeah. What you say. And this is what I want you guys to do when Justin selects you as one of the winners. You're going to email Justin. Justin, you're going to give them your email address. You want them to email you. Tell him your name, and he will make sure to get the books out to you as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you can email justintom1977 @yahoo.com. Justin Thomas, and yeah, just name, address, and where to send the books.
Mm-hmm.
And
there you go.
I will send them to you.
There you go. All right. And you want to pick someone else? There was quite a few people. I'm going to try to go back, and you just let me know. I don't know if you can see the chat, but you should be able to go back. So congratulations to your girl Q. Make sure you email Justin.
Oh, do you plan on teaching or mentoring writers in the near future?
Yeah. Who asked that question? That was good.
Is that Tremel Gilbert?
Tremel.
7437. Tremel?
Yeah, Tremel asks some amazing questions always.
I want to put together a video series called Put It on Vellum. It'll be extremely in depth with my books, and I'll be speaking about that, my inspirations, how I grew up. It will be very, 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 very in depth, and I will be speaking through that aspect. And if I have speaking engagements in the future, then yes, I will. So definitely, yeah. So that will definitely happen. I have the camera, I have the lighting,
you got everything
I have the
you
microphone.
need. That's it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start working on it. Got the background all set up, so
yeah,
I'm gonna start working on that. I'm gonna start working on that.
It's powerful. Okay, is that your second choice for a winner, Tremel?
Yeah, we'll do that. And
All right. Congratulations, Tremel. Make sure you email Brother Justin. Okay, and we need one more.
Look back for the questions.
Yeah, look back. It's been quite a few. I don't know.
It has been.
Abdullah said me. He did. He did. So,
yeah, you know what? Somebody remember that with the company more. Somebody did that. They just said,
yeah, they sure did. They sure did. When I interviewed you, oh my goodness, you guys, and that probably was about.
You know what? Yeah, because that's my boy. Yeah, I got him. Yeah, definitely. That'll be it. That'll be
okay,
it.
Abdullah. But flashback, you guys, full circle. First time I interviewed Justin about 13, 14 years ago, there was people saying, me, I want to be the winner.
Yeah, because we had just gotten off in the weeds talking about everything else.
Yes, we was talking about everything.
And then somebody just came through like, hey, can I have it? That's when somebody, they called in. That was
the call-in, the live call-in show. Oh, we had so much
great.
Fun. So
that
much
was great.
Fun. Oh,
that was
so
really
fun.
good. That was really good.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Okay, Abdullah, there you go. Ask and thou shalt receive. So there you go. Well, look, Justin, I'm going to give you to have us some closing words here that you want to share with everyone. It has been a joy just having you here on the platform, coming by. welcome back anytime. Anytime you got anything going on, please let me know.
Yeah.
Definitely, we are here to support. And like I said, I'm going to be diving in and I'm going to write my questions down. When you come back, I'm going to be like, because it's a couple of them. I'm like, I got to get into. I want to know. I want to know the backstory to all of that. Yeah.
I am going to put together very soon a video series that will give an overview of the Fable Avenue Saga to get people
Ah,
enticed and into it.
yes.
And I'll be doing it in my own creative way.
Yes.
And I will continue to write the fourth and final book, get that finished, get it
Yay.
out, and people will have fun with that. Um, so
Okay.
stay
You got to.
very, very tuned.
He said, I'm salty because he,
Oh
he
no!
didn't get a book.
Oh no!
He didn't get a book. He asked questions. He didn't get a book. He said, I'm salty.
I, I'll give you. I didn't see the quote. All right,
Yeah,
all right, all right, all right. You get the first book in the Fable Avenue Saga.
there you go. You heard
you
it.
get, you get book one.
You
You get
get
book
book
one.
one. You get
You get
book
book
one.
one.
So,
Everybody else is
w-
gonna be. I'm salty too. I'm salty too.
well, it's too late. No more salt. We only could take a little bit of salt. So there you go, my brother. Definitely make sure you reach out to Justin, brother Justin, and and
I
give it
like
and
that.
then and look. Well, I'm surprised. Okay, because you was asking a lot of questions here, this brother here, but
It
you
was.
did say he had a lot of your books, so maybe he didn't, or maybe they didn't need the book. Well, thank you. And I don't want to say the name wrong. I don't want the new people to get sensitive. Miss Blue's gonna mess up your name. I promise you. I promise I'm gonna mess it up.
I promise you.
I promise you, and not on purpose, but thank you all. So I'm going to turn it over to you for you to, give us some closing words as we go out. It has been a real joy just to really have you tell your story. And I know when you come back, we'll have other things that you may want to hone in on and talk about a specific thing. But this was really for us to get inside of the mind of your world, of everything that you've created thus far. And I know we didn't even really touch the surface, but just all that goes into it, your process. I thank you for your genius. I thank you for putting your work out in the world, your diligent work,
Thank you.
and just your genius mind and your
Thank you.
spiritual mind to come together, to bring this together, to bring it into the world. It's incredible. It's incredible to sit down with you. I'm glad to say that you know, I can help say that I helped along your journey as well. So I
Mhm.
know it's going to
Yes,
be so
very
many
much so. Thank you.
great
Thank you
things
so
ahead for
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, Closing words. I don't know what to say.
Listen, you want to read us some poetry. You want to read us a piece of something, anything. Give us a
Oh, you
little
know what?
snippet. Yeah, see, because he got some good goods over there, you guys. I'm doing a little
Just
remote
just a
viewing over
snippet.
there, and I see all them books over there and all them notepads. And listen,
Yeah,
it's a lot going on over there. The
it's a lot
Oracle
going
wants to get
on.
over there.
Let's see. Is this where it begins?
Oh,
Uh,
wow. They said, I have every book and every lecture. Super fan.
what super fans?
Super fan. We
That's what I'm
love
talking
it.
about. Put a
We
cape
love
on.
it. Everyone is definitely giving their thanks. Brother Ike as well. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
humble and gracious. Brother Justice. Wow. Justin, Brittany Vibes is sending her thanks as well, too. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
It's just again a snippet. This part is where, while in 13 pieces is more of a metaphor, this is something that in book three we see play out in history after the Pious Wars. And these armies stand before who is known as Mother Covenant, the goddess,
Mm.
and she's just so disappointed. the way people been acting, they've been killing each other left and right.
Oh.
She's extremely disappointed,
Mhm.
and they're trying to appeal to her to, beg for forgiveness, and she's like, I got some things to say before I give you any type of peace. Um, but she says, it says, we wish she stayed. I'll start here. Uh, Her face is stone. Her face becomes the wall. The wall is where this prophecy was there that scared them, and that's
Oh,
what
wow.
started these wars that happened over many years. So the person is comparing her face to this wall. If only her anger was a facade. We wish she stayed this way, silent, stone, but her tone makes desert heat turn tundra, dictating our dejection, our judgment. Fate's scripted sketched wall is built only of stone. If made of air, script unseen, there would be an issue. But stone is grown, sketched, crafted, shaped. With great force can pressure crumble, break. Nothing set in stone is set in stone for you. Never
Wow.
did you wear fate's woven cloth. The cosmos, your skin, proud, heavenly black body, live freely, naked. You've pranced playfully through life, picking profitable prophecies. Fate to you is a suggestion. You are a spirit separate of its lattice. You, firstborn children, are risen. The wall was only heating warning, but now from this conduct war erupts, stirs virgin lands to wake for lust. The sacred text of the earth no longer scripted, in the cosmos free-willed inked. The world, its spirit sinks, its three moons, red, black, green, look as now like eyes they blink, but from existence faded into one ashen blanched body, neglect. And this one sickly moon, earth shall she reflect.
Mm.
But even while barren, there in her are treasures still, made claim by warring, whorish barons who wanton in their want will want to chain you, subdue for duty. From here to the world, you will build kingdoms for Tantalus and never satiate him. Over and over, he will attempt to drink, to eat. Just a carrot waved in front of an empty soul purpose. Tantalus will make you work for wages, absinthe of your reflection. He will paint images of you and call them mirrors, muddled, mocked, misshapen silhouettes, epileptic shadows stretched to represent you, roped up, dangled, puppet, marionette. For your ill composure, you will hang by the fingers of Tantalus, or so help me gods in the northern wilderness, your shades will decorate my trees.
Wow.
And
Wow.
when my clouds rain down on you, swinging ornaments, do not mistake that for you, I, as your mother nature, weep. My disappointment, my natural firstborn children, in you is too deep. I'll stop it there. So you done messed up when
Oh,
when,
yes.
when Mother Nature says, I don't care if you hang from my trees. I
I
was
don't
so
care.
disappointed
Wow.
in who you are. I haven't read that in a while, so I was kind of messing up on it,
Oh, listen. Yes.
but
Wow.
Brooklyn's Lilac Brew. That's the second narrative, fourth narrative epic poem in the second book. There's so many numbers.
Yeah.
First book, second book, third narrative, fourth epic.
But
But yeah,
all divine, and all in divine timing. Well, we are going to end this at 333. And I just want to say thank you, my brother. I love you. Love to you and
thank
your
you.
family. Keep doing the work that you do. Everybody, definitely make sure you go and follow Justin Thomas, author Justin Thomas. You can find him on social as well. And yeah, and we're going to be excited to have you come back anytime that you
Oh, I
want
can't
to.
wait. I
Yeah,
can't wait.
this has been amazing. So, peace and love. Don't forget to email Justin, because that's how we're going to know who to give the books to. Make sure you share who you are. And you guys definitely like, subscribe, and comment underneath the show. Justin, make sure you come back and comment as well so they can follow you. So,
Absolutely.
when you start drop things on your channel, we can definitely keep up. So, we're going to get out of here. And I love you all so much. Let's enjoy this new moon. What a way to bring it in. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to do
Thank you
this.
so much again. That was
Yeah.
great. This is fun.
This was fun. This was beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to get us an outro song here. Let me see. Where is it? Here we go. Yeah.
You must be a hero. You must be a Superman. 'Cause every time I see you, I can feel the rain. You must be a hero. You must be that kind of man who can make me realize my dreams deep inside. And every time I see you, I can feel the rain. They can say not good enough, I'm not that one for you.
Peace and love, everybody.
They can tell you anything to push you away from me. My heart belongs to you. You must be a hero. You must have been sent by the gods. And every time I'm with you, love and fantasy, I want to share with you till the end of my life. Be a hero. You must be a Superman. 'Cause every time I see you, I can feel the pain.